They're just, again, when we see these stories, and then we see what didn't happen. Over the weekend, of course, you had Senator Tim Scott, who was on Face the Nation, and he was blaming Democrats for the George Floyd Justice Act not passing, saying that it didn't pass because they wanted to defund the police. Let's just be real clear. Tim Scott is lying. The bottom line is that, and we had Congresswoman Karen Bass on the show. She shared with us all that they were trying to do, all that they did, all of the different ways that they were providing, giving in to the demands. But what was real interesting here is that over the weekend, again, we saw Tim Scott making all these claims, but he won't fully come out. And what I understand is, why not do it sitting next to Senator Cory Booker? Why not actually, first of all, let's come to a black source. We know that ain't gonna happen. We've been trying to get him on the show for the last 3 or 4 years. He won't do it. But it says a whole lot that that Senator Tim Scott will say that the Democrats are trying to defund the police. No, Senator Tim Scott failed. Because you heard what Congresswoman Karen Bass said. Mitch McConnell was like, a bill that he brings to us, we're gonna be able to support. Also keep in mind, y'all, Senator Tim Scott's trying to run for president. So all of this, okay, let's blame defund the police. How can he say, let's blame defund the police, when according to Congresswoman Karen Bass, you had Senator Cory Booker who went out and cut a deal, with the police unions. So I'm sort of confused. So here is, matter of fact, I want to pull up the right soundbite here so we can, this is what Tim Scott said on Face the Nation. Listen.
There wasn't a net loss of funding. In fact, there was funding being increased in terms of increased mental health funding specifically, that there were specific programs for recruitment and training funding increases, body-worn camera funding increases, data collection. Yes. So that's not cutting funding. It's might be allocating it in different ways. Actually, here's what we know. We have about $1 billion in grant money that goes to police. When you start saying in order to receive those dollars, you must do A, B, and C, and if you don't do A, B, and C, you literally lose eligibility for the two major pots of money, the burn grants and the COP grants. When you tell local law enforcement agencies that you are ineligible for money,
That's defunding the police. There's no way to spin that. You can spin it by saying...
But this would codify the Trump executive orders.
Let me finish. The Trump executive order, I actually agreed to. What I did not agree to was the cuts that come from non-compliance. When you say, once again, that in order for you to receive the money for the burn grants or the COP grants, you must do the following. And if you don't do the following, you lose money. That's more defunding the police. We saw that tried throughout the country. You wouldn't want to cut funding for underperformance, is what you're saying? Not at all. I would say
you would want to increase to police departments that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Let's look at what we're asking for. What the Democrats asked for was a simple thing. They asked for more reporting on serious bodily injury to death. I said that's a great idea. When they wanted to nationalize local policing, I said that's a bad idea. When they say that every single traffic stop in this country must be reported to the federal government, whether it's a traffic ticket or stopping someone on the streets of New York or Charleston, every single time that you have any interaction, for the federal government to be in charge of all that information, I say let's do it, but let's do it voluntarily.
Okay. Y'all, that's bullshit. What Senator Tim Scott has laid out is utter bullshit. Let's do it voluntarily. Would y'all like to know the history of voluntarily waiting on police to submit information? Lauren, wasn't there a particular bill that was passed by Congressman Bobby Scott that dealt with the police voluntarily submitting use of force data? What happened? They didn't do it.
Right, they just didn't do it. They just ignored it.
They did not do it. So explain to people how that voluntary bullshit worked on use of force.
Yeah, Tim Scott is a piece of work. I don't understand why he can't just articulate that he's against the policy and just be done with it, you know. But anyway, to your question, Bobby Scott passed a bill that effectively just mandated that you report deaths in custody, in police custody. Because, of course, and this is what's so stupid about what Tim Scott just said, when you have that type of data from police departments, when they have a death in custody, you have the data, you have the demographic data, you have how that person died. Sometimes it could be legit, sometimes it may not be, but you have data that can be used for a lot of things, right? And Tim Scott knows that. And the idea that they were sitting down with this guy and could not agree on something that simple is ridiculous. I'm not sure why Cory Booker, who, by the way, is not known for his stellar ability to get anything passed when it comes to justice reform. I mean, he's good at getting into documentaries and he's good at talking about it, but when it comes to actually passing a piece of legislation, even when the Democrats have the majority, he's not been all that successful. But I'm not sure why he's not lighting up Tim Scott. I mean, his answer when reporters were asking him about this was, I love him and, ooh, he's all right. No, you need to tell us exactly what was going on.
Well, let me be real clear. We've been trying to get him on the show. The cell phone number I used to have, now his staff monitors that. We sent an email and text message, have not heard back. But again, I need people.
It's embarrassing.
I need people to understand. I need people watching to understand the bullshit that came out of Senator Tim Scott's mouth. I'm gonna play this again, and I'm gonna stop it. And I'm going to give y'all a prime example of how what he said, his own state of South Carolina actually did. Listen to this.
I would say that there wasn't a net loss of funding. In fact, there was funding being increased in terms of increased mental health funding specifically, that there were specific programs for recruitment and training funding increases, body-worn camera funding increases, data collection.
Yes.
So that's not cutting funding. It's might be allocating it in different ways.
Actually, here's what we know. We have about $1 billion in grant money that goes to police. When you start saying in order to receive those dollars, you must do A, B, and C, and if you don't do A, B, and C, you literally lose eligibility for the two major pots of money, the burn grants and the COP grants. When you tell local law enforcement agencies that you are ineligible for money, That's defunding the police. There's no way to spin that. You can
Okay.
spin it by saying.
All right. So let me walk y'all through why what Senator Tim Scott just said is absolutely complete, utter bullshit. There was a time, y'all, in America where the age to drink was 18. Ronald Reagan was president. There was an effort in America to raise the drinking age to 21. There were states that did not want to do that. There were states that were making a lot of money, like Louisiana, off of selling alcohol to folks 18 above. So you know what the federal government did? The federal government said, no problem. States, in order for you to be eligible for federal highway money, you must raise your drinking age to 21. They said, no problem. If y'all want to keep it at 18, keep it at 18. But if you want federal highway funds, you got to raise it to 21. Louisiana was the last state to agree to raise their minimum drinking age to 21. So explain this to me, Senator Tim Scott. If the federal government did that for highway funds, is that not the same by saying if you don't comply with these things, then you're not eligible for this money? I'm sorry. There are numerous other examples where the United States Congress, the House and the Senate, and the president signed into law. There are numerous other examples where the federal government has said, states, in order for you to be eligible for these federal funds, you must do ABC. So I need Senator Tim Scott to explain to me the difference. This is why I'm calling bullshit on what he said. Because he's lying. What he does not want to own up to is Senator Tim Scott wants to kiss the ass of the police. Senator Tim Scott didn't have the, and I don't want to hear all that crap, oh, how you've been racially profiled, but damn it, that's why they asking for the data. They're asking for the data, Tim, because they're tired of law enforcement lying. Why is the data important? And why is the racial designation of the data important? Because then all of a sudden, when they start showing, black people are getting stopped at a 78% higher rate for traffic violations than white people, but black people only comprise a certain percentage of the city. Just hold on. Art Acevedo. Chief Art Acevedo, the former police chief of Houston, Texas, who is now the police chief in Miami. I want to show y'all what he did recently. This is what Chief Acevedo did. He actually came in and stated that he uncovered a pattern of unlawful use of force by officers, and then said the chain of command covered it up. Read. This is what he wrote. Furthermore, since my arrival at MPD in April, I have uncovered a pattern of unlawful use of force by officers, and in some instances, the chain of command has covered up the unlawful use of force by some officers. I have discussed my concern regarding the failure of some MPD supervisors and managers to hold officers accountable for the unlawful use of force. I have begun the process of addressing this issue with the assistance of Deputy Chief Morris, who has extensive experience as the former commander of internal affairs at HPD. And I look forward to obtaining additional help with the position slated for policy and constitutional polling to help reform the department. That might mean constitutional policing. However, during this September 13th commissioner meeting, Commissioners Carollo, Reyes, and Diaz de Portilla manipulated the budget process to hamper my reform by eliminating the funding for the two aforementioned positions, which are critical to any serious reform efforts. So we have examples of some chiefs of police wanting better oversight, of wanting there to actually be real police oversight, but you got local folks who want to stop it because they're in the bed of police. What you're dealing with here is you're dealing with, again, the failure of Senator Tim Scott to actually bring along. Let me say it again. For all of the complaining, from Senator Tim Scott, he has been an abject failure. And so, and let me be real clear, I got Senator Tim Scott's number. Matter of fact, I'm just going to pull it up. And I'm just going to let y'all know. I'm scrolling back. The last time Senator Tim Scott has responded to one of my text messages was on March 13th, 2017. I've texted him on June 25th. Matter of fact, let me see. Again, what I don't appreciate is when people like to sit here and play games. I don't like it when they play games, when they want to say things and they don't want to. Y'all stay right there. Let me go get my device because I'm about to pull this text message up because I'm not interested in just talking. I want to show y'all what I'm talking about. So I'm looking for my device that allows for me to plug it up right to my iPhone. Cause see, and I know for a fact he ain't changed his phone number because I double checked with some other folk to see if this is still his phone number. Now, just like when you had Alan West, who refused to do stuff. So March 13th, 2000, come on, go to my phone. March 13th, 2017, I sent Senator Tim Scott messages here with regards to Congressman Steve King. He responded, okay, laid it out. Then I laid it out, what we gonna do. So here's June 25th, 2017. Are you available to do Tom Joyner Morning Show to discuss the GOP's Senate healthcare bill? No response. December 19th, 2018, we should do a sit down on opportunity zones. No response. January 15th, 2019, are you available to do the Tom Joyner Morning Show in the morning? No response. Then he had a gathering of black senators on February 6, 2019. No response. March 17th, 2019. Available to do Tom Joyner Morning Show. No response. Then Wednesday, I sent him another deal. Can you come on to discuss this here? Let me send him again. I am live right now. You know what? I'm gonna actually do one better. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. Senator Tim Scott, I'm live on my show right now. We're talking about the failure of the Senate to pass the George Floyd Justice Act. Hit me up, call me back, call me or text me, so you could come on the show to explain to our audience, African-American audience, why this failed. I saw you on Face the Nation. I saw all the responses, but I got a whole bunch of other questions. So for instance, I got a whole lot of other questions I need you to answer, because frankly, what I'm hearing is not, I'm not feeling that. So hit me back. This is my number. You text me back, have your people, and if you want to sit down for the full hour, we can do it. In studio, not in studio. You want to sit down for the full 2 hours, we can do that as well. But let's have a real conversation about why this George Floyd Justice Act failed when you and Senator Lindsey Graham promised that y'all were going to actually get this thing done to the George Floyd family. Send. See,
It'll never happen.
See, I told y'all I don't play these games. What Senator Tim Scott walked through. Now I want y'all to listen. I want y'all to listen to this one. Listen, watch this. Hold up, let me plug it back. Let me plug it back up, because I want to play this other sound bite. And see, this is why. I know you're fine. You can go talk to Margaret Brennan all you want to on Face the Nation, but she ain't gonna ask the questions I'm gonna ask you. Listen to this.
Senator Cory Booker, who was your partner in this.
Yes.
I mean, this started under the Trump administration. It continued under the Biden administration.
Exactly.
When Republicans in control, went nowhere. Democrats in control, it's going nowhere.
But both times, the folks that left the table were the Democrats. Let's just be clear that we have stayed at the table. We said simply this: I am not going to participate in reducing funding for the police after we saw major city after major city to fund the police. Many provisions in this bill that he wanted me to agree to limited or reduced funding for the police. That's a lose-lose proposition. When you reduce funding for police, you actually lose lives in the communities. Our approach was a win-win approach. We want the best wearing the badge, and we want the vulnerable protected. So when you tie funding losses in this legislation, you should expect an allergic reaction from me.
Okay, so again, why that's nonsensical is because you already heard Brennan break it down where the money was going to be shifted. That's not defunding the police. You cannot say, if I give you X amount of dollars and a portion is going to go here and here, you're still getting it. You're literally still getting the money. But what Senator Tim Scott is really saying is, no, we don't want the money to go to mental health. Even though police have said that they are bothered having to do these mental health calls because they're not equipped for it. But see, we don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, some of the unions are for it.
Yeah. And so
some of the unions were for what they were talking about, and Scott stopped it. You know, the other thing that comes to mind, of course, is Walter Scott, who was shot in the back, what was it, 5 or 6 times a few years ago, and Lindsey Graham and Senator Tim Scott got all emotional about it, and we've got to do something about police brutality, and then nothing happened. I actually think the real question here, too, is why are they talking to Tim Scott? You're in control of Congress and the White House. Why are you talking to people and negotiating?
Easy, because hold on. While we were on the air, to your point, Senate Republicans blocked the increase in the debt limit, and the same thing, because they're like, it's on y'all.
You pass what you can pass with the majority, and what you can't pass, you can't pass.
No, but here's my whole point.
What you need 60 votes for, you need 60 votes for.
Hold up. Do you need 60 votes? Wait a minute. Do you need 60 votes for the George Floyd Justice Act, or is the real problem you got Manchin and Sinema, who they refuse to put real pressure on to submit to breaking the filibuster?
Absolutely, and that is the ultimate problem. But there are typically other vehicles of legislation, of course, that pass that you can insert language into. And there's no reason why George Floyd can't be one of those packages you insert into something that's maybe a 50-vote margin vote. That you know, you have to make a deal another way. But why Cory Booker and these people think that they're going to get anywhere with Mitch McConnell and Tim Scott on justice reform, That is fantasy world.
It's
Absolute fantasy
hey,
world.
Juliana, is what I said to Congresswoman Karen Bass. I had absolutely no faith, zero, nada,
That's right. That's right.
none, that Senator Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham were going to be able to bring over 8 other Republicans. I had none.
And you're absolutely right to have none. I mean, many of us believe that faith works, but it don't work this time. What we've got going on here is basically Republicans, they don't care about public policy. They don't care about people. They care about winning. And that's all they care about. And so when you see someone like a Mitt Romney, who knows better? I mean, I could call out the name of 10 Republican senators who know better, but they're not going to do better because they don't have to. They're not going to do better because this is a story of how essentially Republicans and them Trumpies have essentially taken over the Republican Party seat and made decency a marginal value. There, 20 years ago, you look, 30, 40, the Rockefellers, there's so many people who, we didn't agree with them on money, but they were decent. Now there is no decency in the Republican Party, and that's why your faith was misplaced.
Congo?
I noticed that you said he hadn't texted you since, I think, March of 2017. That coincides with 2 months after Trump came into office. So he was clearly being strategic from the jump in terms of his allegiance. I mean, he's not an honest broker. Just like Lauren was saying, the Republicans are not honest brokers. Like all of us said, we knew it was doomed from the start. And let's be clear. Money is not given to anybody without any types of stipulations. I mean, Dean Malveaux knows this. You get college scholarship there, you get a bad grade, you lose the money. So for he's sitting there talking to Brennan, and Brennan is saying twice, you are fine with underperforming departments still getting money? And he says yes. And then on top of that, in the next clip, he says he wants the best officers. They want these guys to continue to operate with impunity. And when he talks about this defunding the police, the Republicans did everything they can to block everything that Biden has done that would actually give more money to the police and give more money to the communities that they serve so that they wouldn't have to be called and come out and have to, like you said, be the social worker, be the mental health worker, and they block that. So just because in this society we are not able to think critically, we got these trigger words, and whenever we hear something like defund the police or woke or critical race theory or whatever, we immediately go into our silos. He's using that, and he's going to use that all the way into a presidential campaign. I'm glad you are exposing this, and we, again, we got to get rid of this filibuster, and we got to make this happen. You just talked about what the Republicans did. They are masters at minority rule. And they are doing the Democrats right now. It's ridiculous.
Look, this is a tweet right here. Listen to this. This guy, Will Selden. 3 times in this interview, Senator Tim Scott defines conditional grants to police departments, offering to give them money if they comply with rules such as banning chokeholds as defunding the police. The phrase defunding the police has lost all meaning.
Yeah, well, see, that's why he won't come on your show, Roland, because you are going to ask him detailed questions about what that burn grant money goes to, which, by the way, is usually things like body-worn cameras, police equipment. So as the interviewer on CBS said, even though she didn't conduct a particularly good interview, she made the point, he's not talking about a net loss of money. He's talking, of course, about the stipulations required under the burn grant program, which has been around forever. This is not new. So he threw that defund police out there just as a hot button thing when that's not what happened. Because as you already brought up, he's lying. He can't withstand that type of questioning from a Roland Martin. Like that's not, you're not going to get away with that in an interview with Roland Martin. You're not. You're not going to be able to bullshit your way through that conversation. So what it requires is for somebody to walk up to him physically, which I'm going to try to do tomorrow on Capitol Hill, and ask him. I mean, you can't. I'm sure that reporters have probably already tried to do this, but it's an in-person conversation. There's no doubt about it, and he knows exactly what he's doing. It's a PR game.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I think that when you look at it, he wouldn't give Roland the interview because Roland would roast his chestnuts on open fire. But even more than that, he is unwilling to be accountable. So he's Mr. Bojangles. I mean, he plays the game. He's black. He's down. He's been profiled. And at the same time, what he's doing is he is essentially blocking progress.
Which why not just say you disagree with the policy? So what's new about that?
Because he wants to be reelected in South Carolina, which is about a third black. And if they ever saw his true colors, black folks will be running from him. He wants to be, as Roland said earlier, he would love to run for president of the United States. And in order to do that, he has some Bojangles around the white people who he will depend on. We need to know who supports him. In other words, who gives him?
First of all, we already know who supports him. We already know who gives him money. Okay, it's established. It's the same as the other Republicans. But here's the deal: what I cannot tolerate is the bullshit fucking lying. I can't tolerate that. Look, okay, this is not hard, y'all, and this is very simple. Go to my computer. This is all you typed in. What type of grant does the federal government prefer? This is what I typed in. How does the federal government stipulate conditional grants? Right. Listen to what I just told y'all. All I typed in was how does the federal government stipulate conditional grants, which is what Senator Tim Scott was whining about in that clip on Face the Nation. Okay, look, the Congressional Research Service informing the legislative debate since 1914. This is dated May 22nd, 2019. Federal grants to state and local governments, a historical perspective on contemporary issues. Go to page 3. Okay, page 3. A continuum of federal grant administrative conditions. Of these 6 grant types, project categorical grants typically impose the most restraint on recipients. Federal administrators have a high degree of control over who receives project categorical grants. Recipients must apply to the appropriate federal agency for funding and compete against other potential recipients who also meet the program's specified eligibility criteria. Recipients have relatively little discretion concerning aided activities. Funds must be used for narrowly specified purposes, and there is a relatively high degree of federal administrative conditions attached to the grant, typically involving the imposition of, listen to me, y'all, typically involving the imposition of federal standards for planning, project selection, fiscal management, administrative organization, and performance. So what I am walking y'all through, is that right now, Senator Tim Scott has more than likely, and when I say more than likely, probably a 100%. It's likely 100% that Senator Tim Scott has actually voted for these very type of grants that he is now complaining about.
That's right. Trump was president in 2019. He didn't say anything then.
And you heard her say in one of the clips, what they were talking about was in the Trump executive order.
Right.
And he cut her off.
Right. He cut her off.
He cut off.
Yeah.
And I supported that. See, this is the part of the problem that I have with shows like Face the Nation, because they talk to him about a whole bunch of stuff. No, that's when you say, no, we throwing the rest of that out. We gonna stay on this topic. In fact, this is when you say, you know what? Bump that other guest. I need to keep this going for 10 more minutes. But see, that's not what they want to do. They don't want to sit here and actually do that because then, oh, he won't come back.
Right.
Predatory.
He's not going to come back.
Right. And who cares, by the way?
Predatory capitalism. It's the way that these shows operate. They operate to basically maximize their profits and minimize the voices of the people. I think that Sister Girl was doing a great job up to a point, but but then she drops it. She just blocking drops it.
And see, just so everybody knows, again, after he went on Face the Nation, here is Tim Scott talking to Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina, who now works at Fox News. Listen.
His buddy.
Yeah, these guys are, let me see if I can reset this here.
They're good friends.
Oh, yeah. Okay, just so y'all know, again, how the cute little game is played. Here we go.
Joining us, Senator, the Democrats left the negotiating table twice. Why?
Yeah. Dre, it looks like they have just, they're managing so many crises. I think they're looking for a way to give Biden a win. Think about Afghanistan crisis, the border crisis, crisis in the Middle East, a crisis of spending, crisis in taxing. So they're putting politics over people and focusing on a partisan victory. They're actually going to look for the perfect and make it the enemy of the good. I simply cannot understand my friends on the other side who must have forgotten what it feels like to live in marginalized communities, wanting police to be there to protect you, thinking about those single moms who come home late at night. They want protection. And 81% of African Americans, Trey, said they want the same level or more police. And you listen to the other side, they're elites. They must not care.
Okay. See, this is the game they play. This is the game they play. 81% of African Americans want to feel safe. Yeah. I don't know anybody who prefers to be unsafe.
Right.
But what Senator Tim Scott did not mention on Fox News is the damn near $1 billion local governments have paid out in police abuse cases. What you hear Senator Tim Scott did not mention was the 2 cases we showed y'all of canine dogs attacking 2 black men. What he didn't mention is Laquan McDonald's case in Chicago, where the cops lied about the shooting and Van Dyke was convicted. He didn't mention the cop in Florida who's in prison for shooting the brother who was in the choir. The cop was driving an unmarked van and walked up on the brother and damn near immediately started shooting. See, he ain't mentioned none of those cases. See, what Senator Tim Scott will never say to Fox News and own up to is black people want to feel safe in their communities. What they don't want are being beaten by cops, being lied on by cops. That's what they don't want. But I guess he overlooks those marginalized voices.
No, that's right, of course. I mean, this is the game. His game is all about making sure that nobody is in a position to ask him questions for more than, 2 or 3 minutes, because it can't withstand, this routine cannot withstand 3 or 4 minutes of specific questions. And he knows that. This is the PR game. And that's why I don't know why the big charade. If it was any other senator, if it was Jim Inhofe or some conservative Republican, they would have said, look, I'm not for this. I don't want to change anything about policing. I'm not in favor of the George Floyd Act, so I don't want to talk about it. So why did we just go through this big charade? Why did Tim Scott want to appear as if he was interested? For what?
Well, Laura,
I mean,
he wants black people to think well of him. So it was a great optic for him to say he was going to do this and to sit with Karen Bass and to sit with the others. It was a great optic. But he never in his entire lifetime planned to move any closer to Bass and the others around the George Floyd Transparency in Policing Act. What he did.
The flip side is, Congresswoman Bass and Senator Booker should have called a press conference and lit his ass up right after this happened, that we found out that the talks had broken off. Because this whole kumbaya, this whole routine that they're doing of not specifically bringing up the dysfunction and the fact that the Republican Party is not interested in serious policy, in serious federal policy, that needs to be pointed out as much as possible.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's Senator Cory Booker, you know, on Meet the Press, and I saw him earlier. You know, there was an interview when he was on Black News Channel. Senator Cory Booker, I need you to, and I already sent him a DM saying I need you to have your staff return some phone calls, because I've been trying to call you because you changed your cell phone number, and maybe I should call the girlfriend, Rosario Dawson, to get a message to him, like, yo, can you call a brother? No, because like bottom line is here, like, we were out there. We were dealing with it. So this is what he told Chuck Todd, and I appreciate them going to all these mainstream folks, but come talk to black people where people actually watch the show. Listen to this.
Want to let you go without asking about your take on why police reform didn't come to fruition. Here's what Tim Scott said. He said Democrats said no because they could not let go of their push to defund our law enforcement. Is that correct?
No. Again, why are we descending into partisan name-calling or partisan corners? These are two guys that sat down, that worked very hard over 9 months, got the FOP to endorse a compromise bill.
Stop right there. See, all right. Scott's wearing your ass out, controlling the narrative. See, let me go. See, let me walk the audience through, because Lauren mentioned it. I need y'all to understand what's really going on here. Senator Tim Scott, whole deal is, how can we control the narrative?
Right.
Boom, he throws it out. Defund. We defund it out. Senator Cory Booker, why do we have to sit here and use names? Bruh! Recognize what they're doing. Let me go back.
I never imagined we would get FOP leadership to come on board. The International Association of Chiefs of Police, who said, yes, our profession's in trouble. Right. The families were with what we were proposing. It didn't work.
Why do you think Senator Scott's using this language, though? Because you've been very diplomatic. He's not being as diplomatic. Why?
You know, I love him. I send him grace all the time. He is a friend of mine. The reality is I've gotten big things done in this town, in this space, with Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley and Donald Trump. We got big things done to cut.
Do you think McConnell didn't want him to cut this deal? Do you think there were others above him that was basically like, do the best you can, but?
I promised the families we're going to get something done. I'm still at work. I'm not throwing accusations at either side. I do think this town has got to learn, all of us, that to try to play the singularly blame game. Right. I accept responsibility. We didn't get it done. I haven't stopped working. We need to lift the frequency of this town, especially on issues like this, that all of America knows. Biggest demonstrations in this country's history for change. They want change from the federal level.
It's quite notable, though, that you're not going politics here. Senator Scott is. Just saying.
Again, I've learned a lot over the last 8 years, and that's not the way to get things done in the long run. And the families deserve. We're going to still see videotapes of unarmed African Americans being killed. We've had tragedies in this country we've all witnessed. We've got to start getting things done. And the wonderful thing about it is, police leaders understand it as well. We've got to get back to the table eventually and get big things done.
Wow.
Let me tell y'all. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all something. You ain't my friend if on the other side of the room you telling everybody he ain't shit. But then when you come with me, hey buddy, no. Senator Tim Scott dragged Senator Cory Booker's ass. And this, if y'all want a case study on how Democrats keep getting their asses handed to them, I just showed you.
Exactly.
This is why.
You're absolutely right.
What would tell you that he's wrong is Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell doesn't come to the table and talk about anything when he's in the majority. He does his thing. And until the Democratic Party understands that and realizes that you have to roll these people They're not negotiating with you. They're playing PR games on Fox News. And they never figure, I don't know what it is about the Democratic Party. They never figure this out. And they learn this lesson of getting their ass kicked over and over and over again. The only one that really seems to understand what the heck is going on really is Pelosi. I mean, she just does her thing. She didn't care about what they're thinking and what they're saying.
See, Omakongo, look, here's the deal. I don't know, Omakongo. I'm hopeful that ABC News will call me back to do This Week after I destroyed Chris Christie.
It's a good show.
It was the first time I was on in 20 months. It may be another 20 months. But here's my whole deal. I'm not going to sit here. There's a reason Fox News don't call me.
Yep.
There's a reason Bill Maher called me one time, October 2014, and he ain't going to pick that phone up again. Because, see, and I remember when I was at CNN, I remember one of the executives called my agent and was like, well, when we have these debates, but he takes them so, it's just a debate. I'm like, no. I'm here to put your ass in a rhetorical body bag. I'm here to bury your ass. I am not here to be cute, so we can play patty cake. No,
Yeah.
no, Ro ain't here for patty cake. Because the issue here, this is about the lives of people.
Right, life and death.
And you gotta understand the other side, they ain't playing by no rules. They ain't playing nice. Scott just said you walk away from the table twice. And your response is, well, I don't know why they're using those phrases. I don't like calling names. He's my friend. I'm going to extend him grace. I ain't extending. Let me tell you something. I'm just going before I go to, let me go biblical here, Senator Cory Booker. When you say, I'm going to extend him grace, the great German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer coined a phrase called cheap grace. And cheap, and just so everybody need to understand, the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer studied at Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem. Bonhoeffer traveled to the United States and saw faith in action, saw social justice and the church combined. Bonhoeffer took what he discovered and studied at Abyssinian Baptist Church and took it back to Germany, began to apply liberation theology in Germany, which is why he was part of the resistance against Hitler, even reached the point of participating in a plot to assassinate Hitler, and determined that killing an evil man like Hitler was justified in the eyes of God because of the evil that he personified, but I digress. He came up with the notion of cheap grace because cheap grace, as Bonhoeffer defined it, Omakongo, was when somebody commits sin and they go, God forgive me, I'm gonna be a hoe again tomorrow, but forgive me tonight. And then when they hoe tomorrow night, then they come, God forgive me. He said, no. He said, we want to keep extending cheap grace. He said, people want, he called that cheap, Senator Cory Booker, that's cheap grace. Because the man has rejected your grace. Said you walked away from the table. Said you want to defund the police. He don't care. He ain't calling you friend. He is treating you like a foe. And when somebody shows you that they are a foe, you do not hug and kiss and be nice. No, you got to treat them like KG did when he played against somebody. He said, we ain't friends, because when the game starts, we on opposite sides, and I'm trying to win, and I'm going to do whatever necessary to take you out. That's how Republicans play the game in this city.
Period, bottom line. Period, bottom line. And not only did Senator Tim Scott say everything that you just mentioned, then he went further to call them all elitists, to talk about they forgot what it's like to live amongst the people. And Senator Booker is always talking about, I still live in the city. I still live amongst the people, so on and so. So he took that as well. And these guys, one of the things that we didn't mention is why Senator Scott is doing this and why McConnell and all of them doing that. They're running the clock as well. They are working to get as close to the midterms as possible, so they're going to delay all of this. And as Lauren said, the Democrats keep falling for this. For some reason, I don't know why this time I thought it was going to be different. Maybe, you know, coming off of Trump and everything that he did, that they were going to be like, we're not falling for the BS anymore. But they're going for it again. You're sitting here talking about, that's my friend, I love him, and so on. So what? I love getting home safe at night. I love, you know, when a cop runs up to me, I love knowing that they're trained and they're not going to try to just shoot me up just because you know, my lights are off or something like that. This is like you said, this is life or death for us. And that's why when you go into these studios, you don't play with them. And that's why these senators and Congress folks can't be playing with these guys right now, because they don't care about our lives. And Senator Booker, you know, respect what you're doing. Representative Bass, loving all of the work that you're doing. But you're right, these senators, we gotta play hardball, man, because it is literally for us a matter of life or death. Forget all of this friendship stuff.
Hold on. Before I go to Julian, again, I'm just gonna give y'all a quick, literally, we gonna close out in 3 minutes. But I just want, this is a 38-second clip. Now, y'all know I don't never like showing anything from CNN. But I'm gonna show y'all how not to respond to Republican attacks. Watch this.
The bill that you were pushing was defunding the police.
Again, it's unfortunate. You remember on this saga, we got the head of the FOP.
Stop right there. Okay. Okay, let me go back. Here's the question.
The bill that you were pushing was defunding the police.
Boom. Come back. This is your response. Jake, that's a lie. And it's an offensive lie, as Senator Tim Scott knows it.
Period.
He knows that's not the case, and I wish he would stop telling that lie in order to score points with his Republican counterparts. Listen. No, hold on. Listen.
Again, it's unfortunate. You remember on this saga, we got the head of the FOP, the director of FOP, IACP, these are some of the biggest unions and law enforcement agencies, to go with us on a lot of common sense reforms. And those folks don't want to defund the police. This is a bill that would have had millions of dollars for police to.
Okay, hold on.
So,
fewer dollars though?
Millions of dollars more. Additional dollars, because we want to help officers with mental health issues.
Stop. Okay, all right. So, this is how you say it. Jake, I met with the Fraternal Order Police. They agreed to this. I met with the International Police Association. They agreed to this. The very people, Jake, who are wearing the badge, who are patrolling the streets, they agreed to this, and this. Senator Tim Scott, who does not wear the badge, refused to actually do this. You also don't go on television with that mansy-pansy, weak-ass millions of dollars. No! Give a number. Say 75 million, 125 million, 200 million. That's what you do. Learn to fight when you are in a war.
Right.
Instead, we've been millions of dollars. Jay goes, hire a lawyer. No, I mean millions. No, give me number. Julian, go ahead.
You know, I mean, you're absolutely right. These Negroes run around acting like they're scared. They have the power in the Congress, in the Senate with 50 votes. They have the presidency. They have the White House. Why do these people not just do their damn work? Just do your work. I'm so disappointed in Cory Booker that I cannot even articulate it. But he'd been Mr. Bojangles much of his life. He was anointed by the Clintons and others as this, you know, Harvard, Yale, wherever he went, black man who's so articulate that he was still of the people. Well, no, he's not of the people. And Tim Scott is right about him from that perspective. Because if he was of the people, he would not be mouthing this bullcrap. He just wouldn't be doing it. And so what we need to do about those like Scott and those like Booker is vote them out, both of them. Lauren is up there cracking up. She's cracking me up by watching her crack. And because this shit is funny, excuse my language, but this shit is funny. It's funny when you have all the power, but you refuse to exercise it. And what it does is to the detriment of our people. And the challenge then, though, is that these people come running back around us every 2 years, 4 years for elections, talking about vote for me because I'll set you free. No, you really won't. No, you really didn't.
Folks, look, all I'm trying to say is this here. This is too serious to continue to play these games. The Republican Party, listen, I need everybody listen to me, and all y'all people who sending me dumbass tweets like some woman talking about you ain't right for supporting Biden. Fool, it was Trump or Biden.
Come on.
That's who the hell it was. Y'all can sit here and run around y'all want to. Here's what I know, and y'all need to listen to me clearly on. The Republican Party wants to take over the House and the Senate, and they want to win back the White House in 2024. They will not support any civil rights investigation in the Department of Justice. They will not support any police consent decrees in the Department of Justice. One of the first acts of Jeff Sessions under Donald Trump was to remove the money that they were used to investigate white domestic terrorism and moved it over to target Muslims, when the greatest threat, according to the FBI director, was white domestic terrorism. And y'all can sit here, and let me tell you, and I ain't never said anybody, Biden damn sure ain't perfect. But if you tell me I got a choice between busting his ass and dealing with crazy ass Trump and his white nationalists, ain't even a discussion as far as I'm concerned. But what we are not gonna do is sit here and play games with these folks who wanna play nice. So I wanna know where all the white streets after George Floyd was killed. Who y'all calling on Capitol Hill? Are y'all flooding the offices of Senator Tim Scott? Everybody who was protesting in LA, and Portland, and Milwaukee, and Charlotte, and New York City, and Houston, and St. Louis, every major city, where y'all at? All y'all corporations, all y'all corporations, all y'all corporations, all y'all corporations who posted your black squares, where y'all at?
Come on.
Where y'all at? I want to know why y'all silent.
Yep.
I'm talking to y'all right here. Come on. Where y'all at? Where are you? Why are y'all not jumping all over Booker and Scott and saying, get back to the table and negotiate? Because for many of you, it was performative. For many of you, it was following the leader. Oh, everybody's talking about it. Yo, send out a George Floyd tweet. Post a black box. Say Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter after the black man was killed, and it matters after the bill was killed. What y'all gonna do?
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform.
that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Fam, the George Floyd Justice Act is dead because Senator Tim Scott, Senator Cory Booker, as well as Congresswoman Karen Bass, they couldn't come to an agreement. Scott spent lots of time on the Sunday shows, Fox News, Face the Nation, blasting Democrats, saying it's their fault. They walked away. So here's what he said on Face the Nation, talking to Margaret Brennan. He was talking about who caused the problem. Who caused the problem? And it was interesting because we played this 2-minute clip yesterday. And the reason I thought it was very interesting as he was talking to them, because he was real clear. It was they were sitting here and they were trying to defund the police, and they were just wrong, and how dare they, and it was their fault. And then it was Senator Cory Booker. They walked away from the table twice. I mean, he was saying all of those things. Really? Is that what really happened? So here's what we played yesterday. I want you to watch this, but I want you to listen. Okay? Listen to this.
Cory Booker, who was your partner in this.
Yes.
I mean, this started under the Trump administration, it continued under the Biden administration.
Exactly.
When Republicans in control, went nowhere. Democrats in control, it's going nowhere.
But both times, the folks that left the table were the Democrats. Let's just be clear that we have stayed at the table. The Justice Act provided clear direction to improve the quality of the experience for the communities at risk and the law enforcement officers who patrol those areas.
So if you're still at the table, was the issue that you just couldn't deliver Republican votes?
Absolutely
for
not.
What Senator
Absolutely.
Booker proposed to you with what he has described as this compromise?
Once again, the fact is that last time around we gave them 20 amendments to change the bill in any way they wanted to. This time we said simply this: I am not going to participate in reducing funding for the police after we saw major city after major city defund the police. Many provisions in this bill that he wanted me to agree to limited or reduced funding for the police. That's a lose. That's a lose-lose proposition. When you reduce funding for police, you actually lose lives in the communities. Our approach was a win-win approach. We want the best wearing the badge, and we want the vulnerable protected. So when you tie funding losses in this legislation, you should expect an allergic reaction from me.
But they would say, and Senator Booker's team has said publicly in interviews he's done, that there wasn't a net loss of funding. In fact, there was funding being increased in terms of increased mental health funding specifically, that there were specific programs for recruitment and training funding increases, body-worn camera funding increases, data collection.
Yes.
So that's not cutting funding. It's might be allocating it in different ways.
Actually, here's what we know. We have about $1 billion in grant money that goes to police. When you start saying in order to receive those dollars, you must do A, B, and C, and if you don't do A, B, and C, you literally lose eligibility for the two major pots of money, the burn grants and the COP grants. When you tell local law enforcement agencies that you are ineligible for money, that's defunding the police. There's no way to spend that. You can spend it by saying—
But this would codify the Trump executive orders.
Let me finish. The Trump executive order I actually agreed to. What I did not agree to was the cuts that come from non-compliance.
Okay. So he said, I did not agree to the cuts of non-compliance. But did he remember what came out of his mouth a year ago when he was talking to Judy Woodruff on PBS. Roll it.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you first about some of the Democrats' reaction. They are saying, yes, this is a move in the right direction, but the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said today that it doesn't rise to the moment. We heard House Speaker Nancy Pelosi say it's inadequate. Do you think you will be able to get enough Democratic votes to get this to a debate and a vote on the Senate floor?
Well, if we do not, then they'll have to explain to the families that I met with yesterday at the White House and the families that I met with yesterday in my office on why we're not willing to take seriously some of the changes that are important to those families who've lost loved ones because of the police interaction. This bill, modeled after much of the House bill, is an important step in the right direction. It also includes the focus of the president and the priorities in the executive order. So we have a chance to do something meaningful for the American people, especially communities of color who are losing confidence in the institutions of authority in this country.
Well, Senator, as you know, Democrats are calling for an outright ban on certain measures like a chokehold or the so-called no-knock warrant.
Yes.
In your proposal, you are saying these things should be tied to federal funding, that if departments go ahead with them, they risk losing funding. And yet you also said today that this is something that should be debated. The chokehold should be debated for the American people to hear. So it sounds like you're open to a complete ban on a chokehold. Is that right?
Well, I would say it this way. My legislation gets us to the position where if you are in a law enforcement department that does not already have a ban on chokeholds, you do not have access to the federal funding. The House bill does not have the ability to actually, in my opinion, ban chokeholds. What they do is they defund states' revenue streams from the federal government. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is that policing is a local government decision, not a federal decision. So I'd love to see how the Democrats thread that needle from federalism and the local department's ability to make the decisions. We do that through the refusing to give them the grant dollars. The White House, in their executive order, does the exact same thing through a certification process. So all three levers of government have the same objective. I think we get there if we keep working together, looking for a solution.
So I hear a little bit
Wait. He just said that if y'all don't have it in place, you can't access the federal money. He then said there's a certification process. So if y'all don't go through it, y'all don't get the money. Is that not what he criticized a year later on Face the Nation? When he said that, oh, they trying to defund. I'm sorry, Tim. I just want to be clear. Did I hear you say this?
Increases body-worn camera funding, increases data collection.
Yes.
So that's not cutting funding. It's might be allocating it in different ways.
Actually, here's what we know. We have about $1 billion in grant money that goes to police. When you start saying in order to receive those dollars, you must do A, B, and C, and if you don't do A, B, and C, you literally lose eligibility for the two major pots of money, the burn grants and the COP grants. When you tell local law enforcement agencies that you are ineligible for money, that's defunding the police.
Hold up, okay. I need y'all to roll that clip from Judy Woodruff back about 45 seconds. Roll it back 45 seconds, and then I want y'all to hear what Tim Scott said a year ago to Judy Woodruff. Press play.
Is a defund states' revenue streams from the federal government. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is that policing is a local government decision, not a federal decision. So Democrats thread that new federal funding, enforcement department that does not.
Debated. The chokehold should be debated for the American people to hear. So it's
guys, put it on pause. Go back 30, 45 seconds. See, folks, this is what happens when you forget your last lie and then you go on TV with a new lie. He literally said to Judy Woodruff that if you do not do these things that we stipulate by the federal government, you're not going to have access to the money. He literally said in the Trump executive order, there's a certification process. Y'all, a certification process means if you're not certified, you don't get the money. Press play.
And yet you also said today that this is something that should be debated. The chokehold should be debated for the American people to hear. So it sounds like you're open to a complete ban on a chokehold. Is that right?
Well, I would say it this way. My legislation gets us to the position where if you are a law enforcement department that does not already have a ban on chokeholds, you do not have access to the federal funding.
Stop, pause. So if you do not have a policy already banning chokeholds, you can't get the money. That's the same thing he criticized. Press play.
Does not have the ability to actually, in my opinion, ban chokeholds. What they do is they defund states' revenue streams from the federal government. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is that policing is a local government decision, not a federal decision. So I'd love to see how the Democrats thread that needle from federalism and the local department's ability to make the decisions. We do that through the refusing to give them the grant dollars. The White House, in their executive order, does the exact same thing.
Stop! We do that by refusing to give them the grant dollars. Is that not defund? He then says the Trump White House does the same thing with their executive order. The executive order he helped write, that he supported. Press play.
Certification process. So all three levers of government have the same objective. I think we get there if we keep working together, looking for a solution.
So I hear a little bit of give in your position, but let me also ask you about this concept, legal concept, qualified immunity.
Stop. See, now, see, again, this is what happens when you lie. Today, this statement came out. Largest U.S. police group appears to counter Senator Tim Scott's argument that Democrats sought to defund police in reform negotiations. Two prominent police organizations, the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Fraternal Order of Police, appeared to push back against Scott's argument in a statement Tuesday. Though the senator's name was not mentioned, quote, despite some media reports, at no point did any legislative draft propose, quote, defunding the police. In fact, the legislation specifically provided additional funding to assist law enforcement agencies in training, agency accreditation, and data collection initiatives. These provisions would have helped strengthen law enforcement, improve community police engagement, quote, without compromising management and officers' rights, authorities, and legal protections. This, y'all, is the statement right here. I'm going to pull it up. This is the actual statement right here. Right here. So here's what happened. Scott said, Well, you need to get the unions on. Booker said, cool. Booker went to these two unions, got the deal. All of us came back, brought it back to Scott, said, they on. Then all of a sudden, the deal got leaked. Then the other unions start yelling and screaming, scuttle the whole deal. See, Scott's been disingenuous. He's lying. At no point did Scott say that the unions were on board. So he goes on Face the Nation, he goes on Fox News, blasting Democrats, saying, oh, they want to defund the police. Here you have two police unions, Fraternal Order Police. We ain't no friends with FOP. Admitting that's a lie. So who will you believe? Y'all also notice Tim Scott would not say specifically, this is what I need in the bill. You know why? Because we had Congresswoman Karen Bass on the show on Thursday. I've talked with others on Capitol Hill. Scott kept moving the goalposts. Scott wouldn't commit. Well, no, I'm gonna need that. Well, no, I'm gonna need that. Well, no, I'm gonna need that. Scott would not even, listen to the Face the Nation, he would not even commit to what was in the Trump executive order. And y'all, he helped support it. This is why he cannot be trusted on this issue. Senator Tim Scott is lying. Either the Democrats wanted to defund the police or the unions are lying. Senator Tim Scott, which one is it? Are you lying or are the unions lying? I'm reading their statement. He won't answer their statement. Because, see, y'all got to understand, the moment the lie is told, remember, the lie moves around the world faster than truth. So he goes on the shows on Sunday. News Cycle Sunday, News Cycle Monday. They dropped their new statement today. Old news now. The lie was effective. The lie was cemented. He did the interview on Saturday. They released a portion of it on Saturday to gin up attention to watch it on Sunday. That's what he did. So y'all also notice, Senator Tim Scott, why don't you sit down with Senator Cory Booker and do a dual interview? And let's go over what you supported and what you didn't support. Let's go over what deals were brought back to you and deals that you rejected. See, that's what really happened here. He's not going to come on this show because he's going to have to answer these questions. He's going to have to answer, not so dancing around these little cute little phrases. He's going to have to answer, no. What specifically did you ask for that the Democrats said no? There were 5 major issues in this bill. 3 of them, the top 3, chokeholds, no-knock warrants, databases. Senator Scott, didn't you support databases in your bill last year? So, no databases this time? Teresa, Abisha, Mustafa, see, this is what happens when you start unpacking stuff, when you start busting folk who lie. When you start saying, but you said this, nice, there is no, it is a 180-degree difference of what Tim Scott said last year to Judy Woodruff on PBS to what he said to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation on Sunday. Any one of you can jump in.
No, you're right, Roland. I think that we also have to remember that something else happened between last year and that Julie Woodruff interview and what happened over this past weekend. What we saw was a great mass of people who were marching, protesting, those on the right as well who wanted to get some level of attention during the election cycle, understanding that voters really cared about police brutality. I would argue that, and we've seen this in the numbers, that that level of people in the streets, but also that level of this being a top line issue for not just the Black community, but adjacent communities that also saw it as important, has significantly gone down. And what Tim Scott did was take advantage of the increase in gun violence, and he's utilized that to be basically his standard bearer in terms of arguing that we need more police. The whole defund the police argument we know is a farce. Nobody within the construct of this legislation was trying to defund the police. That is not what that was about. What we also know is that tying specific elements of funding to a specific platform is nothing new, nor is removing said funding if an organization or if a state group or city-based group goes outside of that. We've seen it with community block grants, CDBG grants. We've seen it with grants to healthcare organizations. We've seen it with grants to education organizations. We've seen it with federal funding to basically anything that goes to the states or the city. So none of this is new. What Tim Scott did was make a disingenuous pact in the beginning because he wanted to have that leveraging point in media, and then came back to the mean because the rest of the Republican Party told him to, and because Tim Scott sees himself as somebody who's going to be running at the top of the ticket in 2024. He does not want to have anything on the mantle that looks like it is progressive. He doesn't want to have anything on the mantle that would push against what the commentary is running on Fox, on OAN, on a lot of these other conservative networks. He was going to always come back, and he needed the political cover. He needed the cover that came from this push to put more officers on the street, largely brought on by the rise in gun violence, which arguably we know how to reduce that as well, and Democrats have plans for that, and Republicans consistently push against them. But this has been a long time coming for Tim Scott. I don't think he was ever genuine about it to begin with. He was just taking advantage of a moment in which this was a platform issue, and the minute that moment started to wane, he decided to push go on something that the Republicans wanted to do all along, pull the rug out from under everyone when it came to true legitimate police reforms.
See, here's the thing here, Mustafa. Tim Scott has never said, this is what I needed in the bill to move forward. Mm-hmm. If you actually go back and listen to all the interviews he's given, he has never definitively said, this is what I needed. No, it was always an excuse. It was always another excuse. And so Democrats were conceding. They would go back, and it was like one thing after another. And it was sort of like, okay, what is it? Like, dude, what do you want? I am told he was specifically asked, okay, Tim, what is it that you want for us to move forward? And he could not articulate that. He was not actually trying to move forward because he know, and you know why? I think that he knows he couldn't go get another 8 votes. See, here's the other people don't understand. Senator Lindsey Graham met with the George Floyd family on the anniversary of the George Floyd's death. When I interviewed the family, I had the only interview with the family on that day when they came and met us down here at Black Lives Matter Plaza. They had a meeting, and Senator Lindsey Graham said in the meeting that I'm going to help Tim move this across the finish line. We think we can get 20 to 25 votes. Tim Scott, you couldn't even get 8 other votes. And so what does he do? Mustafa blames a Democrat because he failed. He could not convince his own Republicans to support a bill that he was their lead negotiator.
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, you know, he doesn't want to get locked down and have to give specifics because he knows, like you said, the Democrats were willing to do whatever was necessary to get something passed. The country was demanding that something get passed. And, you know, folks pulled his card. And when they pulled his card, he used the Shaggy defense. He said, it wasn't me. And, you know, and he keeps saying it. You know, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. And then when people run the tape, you know, the truth is revealed. So, you know, we know what we're dealing with here. Misha laid it out for you. This is about him preparing himself for the 2024 election. They are going to have either a woman or they are going to have a person of color. And considering when you look at the Republican Party, it gets really thin for the vice presidential slot. So he's not going to step out there. And here's the thing that makes it even worse. If what he shares with us is true about his engagements with law enforcement, he should want to do everything that he can to protect the lives of those who don't have the privilege that he has. You know, if somebody is going to pull you over and you got those license plates on the back of your car that sort of let people know who you are, we all know what's going on a daily basis for everybody else. And then when the unions don't even back up your lie, then you know you got yourself a problem. So now he's going to have to figure out how he's going to clean this up. Because if he doesn't, this will also be a drag on him as he tries to run for future leadership positions, you know, inside of their party, even though we know that Donald Trump used to be able to say and do anything and continue to reinvent the facts as he moved along. I don't think Tim Scott's going to get that same grace that they gave Donald Trump.
Teresa, I broke it down last night, and as far as I'm concerned, Democrats are being too soft, too weak in going after Senator Tim Scott. If that man's going to sit there and lie, I mean, the police unions, they have completely contradicted Senator Tim Scott. I don't understand why they are not firing back and checking them left and right by saying, no, you're lying.
Absolutely. I think Senator Cory Booker, you know, is our lead spokesperson on this issue as it relates to trying to get this done. And I think he can speak to some of the actions that Senator Tim Scott has delivered, which was absolutely nothing. And it's unfortunate because, again, Senator Scott has been used. Of course, we knew that he wasn't going to have the votes. I think maybe in the early stages, he probably thought, you know, I am the Republican Party's, you know, golden child. I want to say boy, but golden child. As it relates to being the only African-American GOP, you know, force when it comes to criminal justice reform and any other things that, you know, may look like a progressive lens, but unfortunately, it always stops short. I think with Senator Scott, that's what it always looks like. It stops short on getting it done. But again, it looks like the Republicans have put up at least a fight to do so. And so, again, it's just an unfortunate appeal. Democrats need to do more. Senator Cory Booker and the rest of the Democrats need to call him out. I totally agree that the time is now. We can't wait till later. We can't wait until next year. And we just have to, you know, call him out for what it is. You lied. You didn't tell the American people the truth. You had a strategic plan on how you were going to roll out your communications. And you forget that people are pulling clips from a year ago. You forget that you are pulling clips for 6 months ago because you're saying contradictory things. And people do trust the unions. People do trust the working class. And so those, you know, working people who are saying, listen, you know what? Change definitely needs to happen, and reform definitely could look a little different. I think we need to listen to them and do something different.
And again, folks, so what you're dealing with here, and just so y'all know, this is literally the actual statements right here from the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Fraternal Order of Police, and where they lay it all out, and they said point blank, at no point did any legislative draft propose defunding the police. They said there was going to be an increase in funding. Then it says, our organizations remain steadfast in working with all interested parties who are willing to take a fact-based approach to enact effective and lasting change to avoid a patchwork of state laws that do not provide uniform standards and guidance to the policing profession. The IACP and the FOP will continue to embrace the challenge, instill strong values into our agencies and at all ranks, and hold ourselves accountable for our actions in order to build a more cohesive and safer future for our community. See, here's what that line, if y'all, and what I want y'all to do is, I want y'all to roll back the Judy Woodruff interview, take it back 60 seconds, because that line, because see, this is why y'all need to understand the breakdown. When they say to avoid first of all, fact-based approach, and then to avoid a patchwork of state laws that do not provide uniform standards and guidance to the policing profession, this is what they were referencing, because this is what Scott said 1 year ago to Judy Woodruff. Listen.
Ban on a chokehold, is that right?
Well, I would say it this way. My legislation gets us to the position where if you are a law enforcement department that does not already have a ban on chokeholds, you do not have access to the federal funding. The House bill does not have the ability to actually, in my opinion, ban chokeholds. What they do is they defund states' revenue streams from the federal government. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is that policing is a local government decision, not a federal decision. So I'd love to see how the Democrats thread that needle from federalism.
See, that's the real issue right here. Senator Tim Scott and the Republicans, their fundamental problem is that they are all about states' rights. What those segregationist Democrats were in the 50s and 60s, that's who the Republican Party is today. States' rights, states' rights. You just heard him say, oh, it's really a matter of local and states' rights. Go back to the police statement. This is what the police statement said. We're willing to take a fact-based approach to enact effective and lasting change to avoid a patchwork of state laws that do not provide uniform standards and guidance to the policing profession. So Senator Tim Scott, Amisha, Mustafa, and Teresa, is complaining about saying, oh, Democrats, y'all want federalism, federalism, federalism. Y'all want federalism. And here you have the police unions who are saying the problem is when you have different laws in South Carolina compared to Mississippi, compared to North Carolina, compared to Idaho, compared to Wyoming, compared to California. We need a, quote, they want a unified standard and guidance to the policing profession. And Scott is saying, Democrats, no, we're not going to do that.
It's not even only disparate across states, it's disparate across cities within the same state. So I think that there has to be something done that helps to not only give people faith in the system, but also to legitimize it, where you won't have chokeholds happening in one police precinct or in one city 20 minutes away from one that has already banned them, where you won't have officers that have committed atrocities towards African Americans, some of them deaf, some of them extreme cases of brutality where they nearly killed somebody, and then they just go one precinct over and get another job. I think that there's something to be said here about the reluctance of and the push that Tim Scott did, because this was a general bait and switch. And he had it in his mind. This was a part of a formula from the beginning. And he wanted to ensure that he ran the clock down. That's what all the stalls were for. That's what all the back and forth was for. He wanted to ensure that this was no longer a top of the line news story as it was in the summer, the fall, the winter of last year, and the early spring of this year. He wanted to make this a waning political policy issue, because he knows that despite the elongated fact-based findings that we have reduced, the things that we've talked about on this show, the things that I've heard on other shows as well, at the end of the day, Republicans don't care about facts. They don't give a damn. And having a playback of what someone said last year versus what they said this year, Republicans are very used to this type of rhetoric because they want what they want and they will take it by any means necessary. Right now, they're running on a defund the police, anti-defund the police mantra, and they've seen gains across the country in doing so, and they think it's going to help them in midterms as well. They're not going to let that go.
Again, here's the whole deal, Teresa, from a messaging standpoint, and Mustafa. If you're Democrats, you ain't got any room margin for error. You need to be out there messaging point blank saying, yo, we were ready. He failed. He was the one who couldn't deliver. And frankly, I'm sorry, and I said to Senator Cory Booker, I saw his appearances, they were weak. They were weak. It was weak sauce. I'm sorry. The man is hitting you with a sledgehammer, and you coming back, well, I'm not going to get into name calling. He was my friend. I'm going to extend him grace. Damn that. No grace. No grace. You got to go, you got to get right to it. Final comment, Mustafa and Teresa.
Well, you can't give grace because we got people's lives that are in jeopardy by not having the consistencies that's in place. I mean, the police, these police departments and unions know that they're going to continue to get sued. So, and all the time that I spent in the federal government, folks wanted consistency. In the states, industries wanted consistency so that they knew what the regulation was. What are the, the lines that we can operate in? And it helps folks to just be clear. So when you don't do that, now, Senator Tim Scott continues to drop the ball. I can go through a number of pieces of legislation that he's worked on where he hasn't been successful. And the things that he was able to work with others to get passed hasn't helped people. So this is just another example of failed policies and not being able to deliver on the things that you say that you can do.
Well, I sent it to him. I just sent him a text message, Teresa, saying no response to what the union said, totally contradicting what you said on Face the Nation. Yeah, he ain't text me back in 4 years. I'm not expecting him to hit me back. But I already know it's still his number, and I'm gonna keep sending it to him because somebody needs to be demanding the truth from him.
I agree. I mean, look, if there's a number that we can all text at the same time, please let us know. We'll flood the gates. but I think there is a federal, position that needs to happen. Again, most of these police departments, I think they actually keep it localized. They don't like to change. They're very traditional, and the way they fight crime, the way they prosecute are the ways that they love to be. And of course, I think some of the unions are very sick and tired of being sued and tired of going in arbitration. And I think they are looking for the federal government to step in and do their job. So if there isn't a federal state law or federal law that is changing how police reform happens in the cities and states across the country, then we are going to have these continued situations where people are, doing whatever they choose to when they become one in uniform to protect and serve.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott continues to assert that he was not going to support a George Floyd Justice Act that actually limited or cut funds for police. Democrats continue to insist that was not the case. You had a couple of police unions that came out yesterday with a strong statement saying there was nothing in the bill that actually said that. And so I actually reached out to Senator Tim Scott. He cited several sections in the bill. He said he was going to have his staff send me a copy of the bill. That was last night. I'm still waiting. I'm still asking, where is it in the bill where he asserts funding was going to be cut, which he keeps saying is to defund the police? I can't find it. Maybe my next guest knows what he's talking about. Linda Williams, she, of course, is the president of NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. She joins me now from Nashville. Linda, glad to have you on the show. You had a couple of unions come out yesterday and said there was nothing in this legislation that would actually defund the police. Senator Tim Scott continues to insist that that is the case. Have you seen any evidence to support the position that he is taking at the bill that Democrats were proposing was going to make financial cuts to the police?
Thank you, Roland. Good to have to be here again. And let me correct, I'm immediate past president. I just passed the torch.
Okay,
but
got
I was
it.
very very pivotal in my presidency all of last year, and that is not correct. Matter of fact, Noble sat at the table to help create the language for the bill. We concur with the IACP and FOP that was never the language. Additional funding has been given, and a matter of fact, for training and accreditation and even other data collection initiatives. So that is not correct. The Democrats nor anyone that sat down talked about defunding the police.
Well, and again, like I say, I mean, I hit him up, and I wanted to know specifically what he was talking about. And what he said to me was that sections, this is what he said, read sections 113, 114, 202, 204, 363, 382, and he said, and more. It's pretty clear. I'm still waiting on his team to actually send me the bill to actually see that, but I said, I'm still confused. You keep saying it's clear. How these unions, though, are saying that's not true. I think they would be probably more inclined to make it clear that they will not support something that actually cuts funding. So what is he talking about?
And that's a good question. I am glad that other major organizations have spoken up so they don't think that it's one-sided. I don't know all of those numbers, but I'm very familiar with the bill. Matter of fact, as the national president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, we tried repeatedly to call Tim Scott's office, and he never returned the call. I sat at the table with Cory Booker and even worked on legislation and, op-eds with Sheila Jackson Lee. We're very, very much on the same page, and where he comes from left field to use this as a stall tactic, it's just not fair, and it's not true, because it's not any language that was created and that we worked to put into the bill.
So let me correct this. Let me just be real clear. You're saying that the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives reach out to Senator Tim Scott to sit with him to discuss this bill, and his office never returned Noble's calls.
That is correct. As national president, when we sat at the table repeatedly with Cory Booker and others, just to get an understanding so that we could have our voice, so that we could put the language that would be a benefit for, community engagement for police officers, as well as a better, rapport with our communities. And so in trying to do so and to level the playing field that we could get feedback from both sides, we never received a call back from Scott's office.
So what do you think should happen now? You have the White House that says they are going to move forward with an executive order, but the reality is, according to that statement yesterday from these other unions, they said there needs to be a national standard and when it comes to policing, so you don't have this patchwork of different rules and laws from different states. So even though you have the executive order, you still need the enforcement of the law. What would you say to Senator Tim Scott, Senator Cory Booker? Would you say, hey, get back to the table, stop spending all this damn time on doing television interviews, and hammer out a deal?
You say it better than I can, Roland. Absolutely. Get back in. This is something that our country, this is not, anything that's to divide us. Law enforcement is an extension of the communities. And the fact that we're at this repass that we are now, it's time that we sit down, forget our differences, and work on our commonalities, that law enforcement are here as the guardians of the community. And of course, that means to protect the rights and the responsibilities law enforcement have, but to make them accountable to the communities that we protect and serve. So time is out for, all the interviews and the stalling tactics. We need to get to the table and come back with something. Something is better than nothing, and we all have to give and take. But it's something at a time in our history that would mark this moment in history for those generations to come, that we couldn't get it right. But the time is now, and the time has passed, that we have to put aside our difference and have the transformation that we need in law enforcement in our communities.
And you know, I've reached out to different families. They are the George Floyd family, not happy at all with what is taking place. They're deciding what is next. You know, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think what should happen is simple. I think the George Floyd family and other families should come to Washington D.C. And they should, actually, before they come, they should say, we are calling a meeting and we want Scott at the table. We want Graham at the table. We want McConnell at the table. We want Booker at the table. We want Schumer at the table and Senator Dick Durbin at the table and say, we want y'all to meet with us to explain to us why y'all can't come to a deal. I think this is the moment where the families of those who are affected, Walter Scott family, there in South Carolina, all those families should say, no, we're going to come to Capitol Hill and see if y'all are willing to sit down with us. And then, and you know what? Bring the cameras in and say, share with us, tell us to our face why y'all can't come to a deal.
And, you know, I'm with you. If you keep doing the same thing the same way, you're going to keep getting the same results. All of those persons that sit on Capitol Hill, those are public servants. They are not above reproach or above the law. And maybe it takes the outcry from citizens, from folks like the George Floyd family and so many other that have become, you know, victims of this ongoing tragedy in our country. So I stand with them. You know, the time is now. We can't keep pushing the envelope. You know, we don't want a repeat of what has happened. We need some relational transformation in this country. And if it starts from the very citizens and the law enforcement agencies and the congressmen and legislation for this uniform and these standards, we have to do that. It has to be law, because if we leave it at the discretion of law enforcement, then we'll continue with the same issues that we have always had. The time is now. We have to come together and set aside our differences. It's not a black and white. It's not a red and blue. It's an American problem. And as citizens of America, we have to do better.
All right. Linda Williams, immediate past president of Noble. Well, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And you take care and keep up the good fight.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to go to my panel right now. A. Scott Bolden, past head of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee, attorney in Washington, D.C. Robert Patillo, of course, with Rainbow Coalition, Peachtree Street Project, Coalition Project, and also Breonna Cartwright, political strategist. I want to talk all three of you. That, to me, Robert, is, if you want to talk about really forcing something, imagine if the families of people who've been impacted by police shootings, if they say, we're coming to Capitol Hill on Tuesday, Scott, Booker, McConnell, Durbin, Schumer, Graham, be at the meeting. I would dare one of them to say they're too busy to meet with them.
Well, you know, Roland, I think that's a great idea, but I don't know how much that will actually move the needle, because we all know what the operative facts are on the ground. And as Tim Scott articulated on Sunday, Republicans are more interested in scoring political points than they are in actually ameliorating this issue. This idea that
but here's why. Robert, here's what it does. Here's what it does. What it does is it says, no. You sitting here saying it's not this, it's not that. No. Sit across from the table. So you keep saying this here. Have the unions there. To me, you forced them to be in a room. Ain't no more dancing around. No more sitting here. Oh, is this, is that? Say no. Because it's a lot different when you got to say it to a family member's face than when you say it on Fox News and CBS's Face the Nation.
But these people have lied to the families' faces before. You know, we've heard Lindsey Graham say that he supported police reform. We've heard Grassley say that he supported police reform. We've heard McConnell and Tim Scott say they were going to shepherd this through. At the end of the day, they're a far-right Republican GOP base does not want any form of police accountability or police reform. First, they said that it was the qualified immunity was the reason they couldn't get behind a compromise bill. Now they're saying that it's quote-unquote defund the police why they can't get behind the compromise bill. The truth is that the police unions and many of these law enforcement organizations control the GOP, and there's absolutely nothing that they would agree to. So what they have to do is find those names, find those Republicans who said they are behind this, and then fight like hell to make sure that you can get them on board. Right now, there are no Republicans who are held to account. That's why they trot Tim Scott out there to pretend to be the face of it as their black friend to argue about this. But at the end of the day, they don't have the numbers on the Republican side of the aisle because it is not poll well among Republican voters. This whole back the blue thing is very strong on the GOP side, and they think that anything that will help minority communities or help African-American communities, frankly, that will help poor white communities who are also the victims of police brutality also is a negative for them. And also, they do not want Joe Biden to have any wins on his record going into the midterms. Let's understand the GOP benefits through recalcitrance. That the government shuts down and the COVID numbers go up. If the economy crashes, if you can't get police reform, you can't get voting rights done, that helps them in 2022.
Brianna, bottom line is this here. I think something dramatic on the part of the families is necessary so you don't have the constant back and forth political sniping here that you keep hearing on television.
I hear you, Roland. I do not know if that will necessarily be enough, right? We've been at this for a while. I think that Tim Scott, honestly, as we've seen in other times, exhibits not caring about the people. So I think he can do the same thing in front of their face and be a doofus as, you know, on TV, et cetera. I mean, going back to what was previously stated, even if, you know, qualified immunity was the reason why there couldn't be a deal, that's just, I mean, that in itself is problematic, because the reason why we had, I mean, qualified immunity basically strips away what we had when we passed this prominent civil rights law bill. And so really, you know, it allows for police to get away with killing us without any punishment, because it puts it to a higher standard to allow government officials, including police officers, to be above the law.
But see, Brianna, you're focusing on the qualified immunity part. You notice that is not. You notice in all the conversations that you have seen with Scott Booker on television, qualified immunity wasn't brought up. Scott's whole, see again though, break down what he kept saying. He kept saying they wanted to cut funding, and he said that was a bridge too far. It was not qualified immunity. There are 5 critical components to the bill. What I'm saying is this is important because you have to change the narrative. And right now, the whole narrative is, they want to see defund the police. I wasn't down for it, so therefore, that's why we're not moving too far. You got to sit in his face and say, point it out, and then sit here and have the union say, Senator, we disagree. Union, Senator, we disagree. Booker, Senator, we disagree. Again, this is a narrative issue, and I think forcing them on this whole deal and being in their face after all of this is necessary.
Well, Roland, you may be right, but there's one missing part of your narrative, that it anticipates that they will sit down with the families. The GOP has no interest in sitting down with the families.
Scott, I'm gonna tell you right. Do you know, Scott? Let me tell you how awful it would look. I'm telling you, this is how awful again, and this is why you do it. You do it, okay? The visual. What I'm talking about, you have the visual. Imagine. No. Scott, follow me here. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about narrative. I'm talking about putting it on Front Street. If you have a visual of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 family members walking up those steps on Capitol Hill, going into a meeting room, cameras are there, Democrats on one side of the table, and you waiting to see Republicans show up. Now you have changed the narrative, and now you have forced them to have to defend. Why would you not sit down with the families? That's what I'm talking about.
But your narrative slightly changed. You said Democrats and Republicans and the families. What you just said was the empty chairs. That is a great strategy, because now that's how you change the narrative. My point was, you're not going to get the Republicans to come for that photo op for all the reasons my colleague just said. There are no points in it. And I told you, and I told Monique Presley 3 months ago, when Monique sat here and said, I looked the senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, in the eye. He's committed to police reform. I said then and I'll say now, they can fiend whatever you want them to fiend, but they vote with their feet, and what they say about police reform is not the same as what they're going to do. They didn't do it. I told you they weren't going to do it. And by the way, the black senator from South Carolina, hold on. He's not talking to you or me or the Democrats when he says they wanted to defund the police. He's talking to the Republican conservatives for their rally call that says we can't do that.
Of course.
And so you're giving the Republicans really too much credit because they don't care. And you have to care to be embarrassed. You have to care to work with the other side. They have zero interest in police reform. Zero.
But Scott, again, what I'm talking about is it still is a question of tactics and narrative. Demario Solomon-Simmons, we're going to talk to him about the Tulsa hearing. Hold on. Attorney Demario Solomon-Simmons, we will discuss with him about the Tulsa hearing in a little bit. He wants in on this conversation. What I'm arguing, Demario, and you've been doing this in Tulsa, there has to be something dramatic not from a Democrat, not from a Republican. To me, there's nothing more powerful than to have the families of people who have been impacted by police abuse and police violence challenge both sides to say, sit down and let's restart the conversation, and we want to hear directly what is the problem. Why can't this thing move forward?
Well, Roland, you know you're my guy, but I'm just going to simply say to you, we've done that. We've sat down with the Republicans. I agree with my friend Scott Bolden. They don't care. They don't care. They have no shame, and they're not going to vote for it. And the reality is the real problem is... And
that's why you're doing it again, to shame them.
But the real problem is the Democrats not getting rid of the filibuster. The Republicans are doing what Republicans do. They stand strong, they stand united, and they stand against the things they're not for. They're not for police reform. They're not for getting rid of expanding the courts. They're not for voting rights for black people. That is not what they stand for, and that is not what their voters vote them in to do. So it's up to the people we vote in, the Democrats, to do the things that we hoped that they were going to do. And at the end of the day, they simply have failed us at this point. My clients, the Crutcher family, has sat down.
You're not going to get. Look, it's two main senators who are saying they are not going to end the filibuster.
It's not just two. Those two are the front. Those two are holding the fronts for the others.
Demario. I said there are two main senators. What you have seen is Senator Mark Warner, who has said that he supported a carve-out specifically when it comes to voting. Yes, there are senators. I'm saying the two main senators. That's what I said.
Well, I agree, and we got to continue to fight. That's all we can do. We got to continue to push the envelope. I'm just saying that these particular Republican senators and elected officials, they have no incentive, as Scott said and other panelists said, they have no incentive to do the right thing because their voters don't want that. Their voters they don't mind us being killed in the street. They don't mind us being mired in the court system like we are right now in several of my cases because of qualified immunity, which makes it so difficult to be able to not only hold the police accountable, but it causes our cases to be on hold for years as the court waits on making a determination. They don't care about that. So I'm not saying we don't continue to try, we don't continue to do everything we possibly can, but these guys have sat down, my clients have sat down with Lindsey Graham. They sat down with Senator Scott. We sat down with other members of the GOP and had these passionate conversations, the tears, why this is important, and heard them say, we believe in this, we want to help you, and then they come out and they never do anything that really substantially help us. That is just our reality.
But this is the but Breonna, here's the thing, it's very simple. Okay, if Demario says we got to continue to fight, but what the hell does that look like? Okay, what I'm arguing is continuing the fight. So what does it mean, continue the fight, if I'm saying we don't challenge them, we don't get in their face? That's a part of continuing the fight.
Well, I think the premise that agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, one second, hold up, Breonna. Hold up, Breonna.
I agree with with the picture of having empty seats. It's a tool that's worked many times in labor negotiations, and it sends volumes that they couldn't even show up for the people that they're supposed to represent. But going back to what you said, the filibuster, right? That in itself is created on race lines. You know, it was created when they wanted to pass a bill against the heinous act of hanging Black Americans. And it took 100 years to break the filibuster, and it's still not on law. So the filibuster came into place to ban these civil rights legislations. And so going back to what this is, and going back into, you know, what I was stating, I know that you said that they didn't talk about it, but qualified immunity, that once again was after the end of the Civil War when Congress passed a key Civil Rights Act. All these things that are blocking us from not dying in the streets is based on creating things to prevent it from going forward through race. And so they have Tim Scott there as a token, as a Black man, saying, oh, this is going to be bipartisan, and see, we have Black people as Republicans, which is a whole nother story. But, you know, it doesn't go past that. And they don't really care because they don't lose their base by not showing up. And Bolden said it
okay,
right.
so here's the deal, Rob. Okay, Rob.
So here you go, Roland.
So, okay, Robert.
So here's the deal. Watch
okay,
this.
no, hold on. No, Scott, hold on. So, Robert, if we say keep fighting, what does keep fighting look like?
Well, look, Roland, I'll give you
for
what
you.
the GOP,
What does keep fighting look like?
I'm going to give you exactly what the GOP talking points are going to be to the empty chairs. They're going to come out and they're going to have Tim Scott there.
No, that wasn't my question. No, Robert.
Roland, you got to let me respond.
Okay, answer the question.
Let him talk, Roland. Let him talk.
What the Republicans are going to say is,
Scott, I'm hosting the show. I got this.
Look, all they're going to say is we are not going to be taking part in any political stunts. We've been trying to work with Democrats for the last 2 years. Suggested the Justice flat. All they are attempting to do is move the ball down the field, and they want to cover up for Democratic mayors and their failures to address police reform on the local level. This is why Democrats need to be petitioning Joe Biden and the Senate leadership on the filibuster. That empty chair moment worked with trying to get Mark Warner, trying to get Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to come up off of opposition to the filibuster. That is where the battle lines are going to be. There are not 10 Republicans who will vote in favor of any form of police reform. Not 10 off the Senate.
Robert, you did not answer my question.
Not going to get ashamed of.
Robert, I'm going to ask you again. Answer this question. If we say let's keep fighting, what does that look like then?
The fight is over the filibuster. The fight is over getting rid of the procedural rules and passing it on a 50-50 party line vote and having the vice president be able to break that tie. Right now, we do not have 50 Democrats who are
You're still not answering the question. No, you're still not. Stop. No, you're still not answering the question. I agree with getting rid of the filibuster. I'm asking you again. What do we do? What does that look like? What do the people do? What is it? I'm talking about the action, not getting rid of the filibuster. What should people be doing to make that a reality? That's what I'm asking you.
Well, one, it has to be petitioning the president, making sure our congressional leadership are meeting with the president on a regular basis to impress upon him the need to get rid of the filibuster. Also, we have to be lobbying Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, Mark Warner, any others who are against that policy proposal on a regular basis. We cannot simply keep talking to the senators who already agree with us because they are already impotent on this. But we are going to need presidential leadership when it comes to abolishing the filibuster, not these lukewarm statements, because this will never get passed if we're waiting for 10 Republicans to come across the party lines. Joe Biden's administration.
Question.
That is what I'm saying. We have to address these senators who are against repealing the filibuster. Even if you want to do a cutout just for voting rights and criminal justice reform, that can be done and maintain the filibuster for other issues like national security, going to war, those sorts of things. But if you do not get rid of the filibuster on criminal justice reform, you will never get anything through. And you need the president and the vice president and Senate leadership all singing from the same sheet of music. Right now, there is no leadership on the issue.
And the reason you got to turn.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you. No, Scott. One second. First of all, hold on. I'm going to say who speaks next. I need everybody to chill. DeMario, answer the question. If we say we are going to keep fighting, what does that look like? What should the people be doing what should the people be doing to try to make this thing happen? Okay, doing what? I want to know specifically, because people are watching and listening, and they're saying, all right, I need some marching orders. Marching orders is not Biden should do this, Schumer should do this, the Dems should do this. What should we be doing to force them to do it? That's what I'm asking. DeMario.
Right, and I can answer that question because we're doing this right now. Number one, in a specific case of the crutches, we're going to the Department of Justice trying to seek relief that they can provide us. We are talking to our Democratic senators. We are talking to the White House, and I agree with the brother that just was speaking. We need to put the pressure on the President of the United States of America to come out with a forceful statement that this filibuster must go away. He was elected by black people because he said he was going to be for racial equity and that he was going to do the things that we needed to do so we could vote and live without police violence and have an opportunity to be successful and safe in this country. He has not done it. He came to Tulsa to talk about the massacre. He talked about equity, but he hasn't done anything. He hasn't passed anything. He hasn't signed an executive order. He hasn't come out and said, I am against the filibuster. I want this bill passed and the filibuster needs to go away, period. He has not done that, and that's where the fight is. These Republicans are not going to change themselves. They are doing what they've been their job. I respect Republicans for that because they do exactly what they say they're going to do. We don't like you Negroes. We don't want you to vote. We don't care if you killed in the streets. We're not going to help you. And they don't do it. And we continue to beg them while the Democrats who say they're for us, say they're going to do things for us. They said if we flip the seats in Georgia, then we can get all these things done for racial justice and for our people for voting. That was the deal. That was the promise. And that has not happened. Period.
This is what I'm hearing, Scott, which I said a couple of months ago. When are you going to see on this very issue, when people were getting arrested at the United States Senate? What did I say? There should be folks sitting here chaining themselves to the fence of the White House fence. That is, wherever Biden goes, he is seeing those voting rights activists. He is seeing those folks demanding George Floyd Justice Act. The reason I'm saying what to do is because we are excellent at saying this needs to happen to get the bill passed, but people are saying, I need to know how to channel my action. People are saying on the various, who am I calling? What number am I calling? Who's organizing that? Who's driving that? That's what I'm talking about. It's one thing to say we got to end the filibuster. We have to then empower the people and direct them on where to go, who to call, what to do, at what time. Otherwise, they're like, I'm ready to fight.
But there are groups doing it. But there are groups doing it.
This fight is far more sophisticated than that, though. Because
one second. Scott, 1 second. Scott is talking. Hold on. Scott, go.
This fight is far more sophisticated than taking it to the streets and getting arrested. We've done all of that, right? This White House has got to step up. I am sick and tired of the rhetoric of this White House. I want their rhetoric to become a reality. And the reality is that only the White House has the power to pressure those two senators to end the filibuster and those who may be on the fence, and we have not made them do it. So how do we make them do it? We get the top 6, top 8 civil rights organizations to go meet with him and put pressure on him because of their constituencies behind them and demand that he do something about Manchin and Sinema. Do something about it. Cut a deal. Cut them off. Cut them away. Cut them out because they are not being loyal. The Republicans are loyal. They don't care. They had the biggest embarrassment in the White House, and they stuck with him, right? They were loyal soldiers. The Democrats haven't been loyal soldiers, and you got to make them jump in line and make them do what they're supposed to do. And Biden and Harris and this White House have not done it. They'll do it for the budget. They'll do it for the infrastructure, but they won't do it for police reform or voting rights and then demand that Black America votes for them again in 2022. What really needs to happen, the only way it's going to change is you outvote them. You outvote them in 2022, but guess what?
So Brianna,
what's the Democratic argument for Black people voting for them again when we put them in the White House and they failed us within 2 years of 2022? That's your problem. That's a
So,
bigger
Brianna,
problem.
I'll make this. So, Brianna, I'll say this. Brianna, I'll say this also. All those folks who were protesting in cities all across America after the death of George Floyd in May of 2020 of last year, 2020, where y'all at? See, what has to happen is a return to the streets. What has to happen is mass protests. That has to happen. And so that also has been the case. What you've seen over the last 3 months, 6 months, you've seen largely black organizations. You've seen the Black Women's Roundtable, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. You've seen Black Voters Matter. You've seen others. You've seen them engage in protest, civil disobedience. What you have not seen are the hundreds of thousands and millions who were saying justice for George Floyd, as they say, where you at? Brianna?
I hear you. I think I agree with Bolden in the sense of I do not think those protests is going to move the needle enough. I do think that we need to be in every meeting. I think we need to have these conversations. I think we need to have them on social media, TV, in the streets, everywhere, kitchen tables, and have, the faces out, right? Have these civil rights organizations out. As it's previously stated, there are organizations focusing just on this. You can say that there was a protest after George Floyd, but you see how far the George Floyd Act has gone. I don't think that us protesting and, like Bolden said, us getting arrested and everything that we've been doing up until this point is pushing the needle far enough. I think the fact of we put it back into
what pushes the needle? So what pushes the needle?
I think if we collectively come together and state one statement and show the numbers within that, and that they can lose their job, and literally show, okay, this is not working. This is who we're going to replace you with. Are you going to do the job or not?
But that's actually what mass protest creates. See, what they really like, they like when we go away. They like when it gets quiet. They like when people are not mobilizing and organizing. What they are afraid of is when folks mobilize and organize. Let's be real clear. The White House is not afraid to meet with civil rights organizations. Hell, they already met with the NAACP, Sharpton, the Urban League, LDF, Lawyers Committee, A. Philip Randolph. They already met with them. What they don't want to see, they do not want to see hundreds of thousands of people mobilizing in the streets in the cities across America. That's not what they want to see. And all I'm saying is they ain't got no problem with nice, cute clothes meeting, but they do not want to see folks showing up. But here's the deal, though. You ain't voting until this election. You ain't voting until the election.
And you're protesting. You're not just having a sweet meeting with them. You're protesting your constituents. You're bringing them outside the White House, but you're protesting the White House. You're not protesting police reform or voter rights. You're protesting Biden for not doing what he's supposed to do and said he would do. That's a very different protest and a very different meeting.
And so what I'm saying is this here, because this is what I travel all around the country, and this is what I get wherever I go, DeMario. What do we do? That's what I get. When I'm on airplanes, when I'm renting cars, when I'm going places, people say, what do we do? Where do I go? What do we do? And that's the piece right there. And here's the deal. Everybody can't go to a meeting in D.C. And so now it's a question of, okay, who are the 10, 12 senators we're talking about? Okay, is it Coons? Is it Coons? All right. Who's mobilizing in his state? Okay? Who the folks moving on Cinema in Arizona? Who the folks moving on Feinstein in California? Who the folks moving on Warner in Virginia? That's what I'm talking about. So what I'm saying is we've got to give our people direction on who to call, where to go, what to do, because they're saying, I'm ready, but ain't nobody giving the call.
DeMario, go ahead.
I think that that is happening, and I think there are many groups that are doing that. And I think we've shifted this conversation exactly where we need to be. We were first talking about trying to sit down and embarrass the Republicans, and we've decided that that is not the play. But the play is to focus on President Joe Biden, who is the leader of this country, who was elected by black folks, saying he was going to do and get these bills passed, and also those senators, those Democratic senators who need to step up. I would also personally like to hear more, even from the senators from Georgia. Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff. I want to see more from them, getting out there, getting in and saying that Joe Manchin, you can't do this. Look, last week, as you know, Roland, or 2 weeks ago, I was in D.C. We were trying to meet with the DOJ. As you know, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, my client, we ran into Joe Manchin on the street because we were at the wharf and he lives down there. And she went up to him and she challenged him right then and there. And we want these Democratic senators to do the same thing. Stop playing nice with these folks. Our lives are on the line, period. Our lives are on the line, period. I said it again, our lives are on the line, period. It is not time to be trying to talk nice, anything. How the hell did Lyndon B. Johnson was able to get the most consequential civil rights legislation passed in 100 years? 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1968 Fair Housing Act. He was able to do that with the most overt racists, people that were still calling us niggas in public. He was able to use the powers of the presidency to get that done. That is what we want to see from Joe Biden. Right now, tomorrow, he should be signing executive orders.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared. You dig? Folks, we've been doing a deep dive into the failure of the George Floyd Justice Act in the United States Senate. It has pitted South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, Republican, against Democrat Senator Cory Booker. Now, we have been breaking down for you exactly where Senator Scott has stood on this issue. He has said that he did not move forward on the bill because Democrats wanted to defund the police. He insists in the bill that there are several clauses that show where they wanted to take money from law enforcement. His position, they must keep giving money. On Tuesday, 2 police organizations came out publicly stating that there was nothing in the proposed legislation that defunded police. One of them was the Fraternal Order Police. Senator Scott's office sent me an email today showing other law enforcement groups who take the opposite position. All right, so we're going to read for you exactly what those are. So let's actually go through that. So this was a particular statement that came from one of those groups. I want to read from that please. So let's go ahead and pull that graphic up so you can actually see this graphic. And so one of these organizations, and like I say, what you have is you got to understand. There's not one law enforcement organization. There are different law enforcement groups. And so that's what Scott's office is banking on. And so they're saying, yeah, the sheriff's organization, that they are in opposition to the bill. But again, you have 2 other groups that are in support of the bill. Yeah, I know it sounds real confusing, folks, because it is confusing and to understand exactly what is going on. And so Here's what you have here, okay, with this particular sheriff's organization, all right, which is SCSA, and that's what they actually go by. Now, that is the South Carolina Sheriff's Association. Now, here's what's interesting, all right. It's the South Carolina Sheriff's Association. There are 49 other states. But again, Scott is banking on them. And so this is what they wrote. They were particularly disappointed to learn of the deterioration of negotiations on national police reform. Now, they wrote, various media outlets have attempted to determine who is at fault for the collapse of bipartisan discussion. Some have cited support or criticism from various national law enforcement organizations. In fact, some have gone so far to allege Senator Tim Scott and his staff operated in bad faith and against the whole, against the wishes of police groups. So this person, as someone who literally sat at the negotiation table with Senator Scott, Graham, and Booker, I want to clarify a few matters. So again, this is coming from the president of the South Carolina Sheriff's Association, all right, whose last name is Tolson, all right? So here's what he lays out in here. He lays out in here that, okay, blah, 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 I have great respect, admiration, yada, 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 for these other organizations. But he says, he goes on to say, honest communication, we can't understand each other's concerns and objectives, yada, 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 yada. He said, second, while I never saw a legislative draft that contained the words defunding the police, that does not mean provisions in these drafts would not cause law enforcement to lose funding. Several drafts contain provisions that prohibited states or local units of government from being eligible for COPS or Burns JAG grants unless certain statutes were enacted, making critical funding for agencies in the executive branch contingent upon the enactment of statutes by the legislative branch, in my opinion, is wrong. Had these provisions been enacted, law enforcement agencies nationwide likely would have lost important federal funding because their state legislatures either would not or could not comply with the federal requirements. This is de facto defunding the police. Okay, let me unpack why that is a lie. Now, first, I want you to leave the statement up. Leave the statement up. Leave the statement up because I need you to understand. I need you to see for your own words because I need you to realize we showed you the video where a year ago Senator Tim Scott said that if folks were not in compliance, they could not get the grants. He said that in the executive order that Donald Trump signed, that Senator Tim Scott supported. It said the same thing. So all of a sudden, why is there a difference? What's going on here that they are asserting that, oh, if you don't do these things, you can't get the money? Senator Tim Scott actually said it. If y'all had the soundbite when he was on with Judy Woodruff from PBS, he said it. Listen.
We're saying these things should be tied to federal funding, that if departments go ahead with them, they risk losing funding. And yet you also said today that this is something that should be debated. The chokehold should be debated for the American people to hear. So it sounds like you're open to a complete ban on a chokehold. Is that right?
Well, I would say it this way. My legislation gets us to the position where if you are a law enforcement department that does not already have a ban on chokeholds, you do not have access to the federal funding. The House bill does not have the ability to actually, in my opinion, ban chokeholds. What they do is they defund states' revenue streams from the federal government. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest with you. The fact of the matter is that policing is a local government decision, not a federal decision. So I'd love to see how the Democrats thread that needle from federalism and the local department's ability to make the decisions. We do that through the refusing to give them the grant dollars. The White House, in their executive order, does the exact same thing through a certification process. So all three levers of government have the same objective. I think we get there if we keep working together, looking for a solution.
Okay. He literally said, we do that in the executive order. So, Senator Tim Scott, what the hell is the difference? That's what the federal government does. The federal government, in numerous bills that I guarantee you he's voted for, tells states, if you do not do these things, you can't get the federal funding. That's the only way the federal folks are able to make changes. I told y'all before, when the federal highway funding, they wanted to increase the drinking age, the legal drinking age in America from 18 to 21. The federal government said to South Carolina, to the other 49 states, if you want to qualify for federal highway funds, you will only get the money if you raise your minimum drinking age to 21. That's a fact. So he's now all of a sudden, oh, I disagree with that from a state level. I'm sorry, y'all, that dog just not gonna hunt. And so he's saying, oh, these, policing, it's a local thing. And this is a problem. He's saying it's a local thing. Well, why in the hell are we even discussing a federal bill then? See, you can't have it both ways, Senator Tim Scott. You can't say it's a local thing, but then you're leading this federal bill. And you ought to see, and look, here are all of these statements that Senator Tim Scott has made about this particular bill. I mean, he said all kind of stuff. He said change requires resources. Sadly, the Democrats' proposal contained multiple measures that would have diminished funding for law enforcement. No, it wouldn't diminish it. It simply says if you do not do these things, you don't get the federal funds. That ain't cutting funding. That's simply saying you want the money, you got to do some stuff. Scott says we all agree only the best should wear the badge. If we want to protect vulnerable communities, we have to provide the resources needed to train and retain the best. Yeah, but you also got to make changes to how they actually do it. I grew up in some very poor communities, always wondering if my mother would make it into the house safely after her late shifts. Folks in those communities deserve better. Now continue working until they see solutions. Really? Then he goes on. Under GOP leadership, we saw solutions. Permanent funding for HBCUs, that is a lie. That is a lie, Senator Scott. You did not do permanent funding for HBCUs. In fact, you can say under GOP leadership, it wasn't even a GOP bill. That was led by Congresswoman Alma Adams, Democrat from North Carolina, HBCU graduate. Please don't lie. Record low unemployment rates. At a point, there were record low unemployment rates. Then they double when COVID hit. So please stop it. A fair justice system. Stop lying, Senator Tim Scott. Democrats controlled the House. Criminal Justice Reform Bill, the First Step Act, was passed by a Democratic House. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries led it. That bill was strengthened in the United States Senate when Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris, and Senator Dick Durbin, including Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, said the bill did not go far enough and it was strengthened. Please stop trying to claim credit under GOP leadership. No, that is simply false. If it were not for the Democrats insisting on changes being made, you would not have had the First Step Act. Stop taking credit for things you didn't do. He goes, if the Democrats really want solutions now, they should come back to the negotiating table. No. How about you be honest about actually what's going on? Now, I told you these statements, all these people releasing these various statements about this particular bill. And I told you there was a sheriff's association that also was taking a different position. All right. And so here's what I find to be interesting. And again, Senator Tim Scott's office sent me an email. OK, you have two groups, Major County Sheriffs of America And then you have National Association of Police Organizations. All right. The Major County Sheriff's Association of America, they sent out their statement. And so that's the problem. What you have is you have different folks, different groups on the aisles. And so this is what they said. The MCSA, legislative proposals could diminish policing resources in many ways without specifically defunding programs. What the hell? You can't have it both ways. The net effect of one proposal that Senator Scott opposed was that fewer resources would be available to departments that would be unlikely to be able to immediately comply with the many new regulations. Hey, y'all, that's what happens. We support and encourage legislation. Y'all, if y'all want to hear a contradiction, listen to this. We support and encourage legislation that leads to better policing and more safety for communities. However, legislation that adds more regulations while threatening existing funding levels is setting up our law enforcement agencies for failure. No, it's not. Stop lying. You cannot complain about more regulations and you want the money. Carrot, stick carrot on the carrot, stick carrot. If you want more money, federal folks are saying you got to do these things to get more money. So what Senator Tim Scott wants to do is say, hey, I'm just going to give y'all more money. No. You have got to comply. You have got to make changes to how you behave, how your officers behave. The problem is they don't want the level of accountability that Democrats have been calling for. That is the fundamental problem here. So, y'all, I've gone through the bill. And the stuff Senator Tim Scott sent me about, oh, it would defund, no. What the Democrats were saying is, if y'all want to get this extra money, you've got to do some things to qualify for it. It is no different than the executive order that Trump signed. You want to get the money, you got to be certified. You got an option. Don't get certified, don't get the money. No one is forcing. See, this is the thing that Senator Tim Scott and his team, they're not admitting to. No one is forcing any law enforcement agency to do anything. What they're saying is, if you want more money, this is what you got to do. Hell, that's like my mama and daddy saying, so you want me to fund your trip? Well, I'm going to let you do some shit around the house. That's like me saying, no, I ain't going to do extra stuff around the house. I want the money. And my parents like, well, hell, I ain't giving you the money. Y'all, this is not hard. But the problem is, law enforcement and Senator Tim Scott want it both ways. They do not want to force these law enforcement people to make changes. And then Scott's talking about federalism, and this is all local. Guess what? That's fine. But see, here's my other problem right here, Senator Tim Scott. You of all people got to stop this nonsense about federalism and states' rights when your state gets damn near half of its budget from the federal government. It's amazing how y'all don't like federalism until you need a check. The federal government right now sets conditions on housing grants, environmental grants, transportation grants, up and down the board. But all of a sudden, Senator Tim Scott, no. We can't have that when it comes to policing. No, sorry. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it because it's nonsense. They don't want the accountability, folks. That's what they don't want. I want to bring in several people. Reddy Hudson, he's the founder of the National Coalition of Law Enforcement Officers for Justice, Reform, and Accountability. We have Cheryl Dorsey, retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant. We have Michael Harriet, senior writer for The Root. He's out of Birmingham. Cheryl also is the author of the book Confidence Chronicles, The Greatest Crime Story Never Told, out of Los Angeles. Reddy, I'm going to start with you. Go to Cheryl, go to Michael. Reddy, I've walked through the bill. I've talked to Congresswoman Karen Bass. I've been texting Senator Tim Scott. I've been emailing his office. We've been trying to get Senator Cory Booker on. I have not talked to him. We've talked to his staff. Senator Booker, I need you to come talk to Black America, please. If you found time to go and meet the press and Jake Tapper on CNN and other shows, you can come do Black Media, okay? So that needs to be said. What's a trip here, Reddit, is the game that Senator Tim Scott is playing by touting the sheriff's organization and this South Carolina sheriff's group, okay? And then you have the Fraternal Order of Police, which is considered the major police organization. And another one that said what he's saying is not it. Your assessment of what's going on here when it comes to the George Floyd Justice Act.
Well, you hit the nail on the head already, Roland. Senator Scott is responding to his handlers. He's doing what his handlers want him to do. I read an excellent article by the brother that's on the panel with us today, Michael Harriot, who pointed out that Senator Scott started back in 2015 introducing a bill that called for exactly what you said, federal withholding of funds for states that didn't comply with the guidelines of the bill that he set forth. He is on the side of those folks. Again, those people he represents in those law enforcement agencies are never, ever going to vote for accountability, support accountability for enforcement agencies that violate, our rights, our constitutional rights, our human rights, our civil liberties. They're never going to do that. They're going to stall, bullshit, and shuffle all the way until Democrats do what they need to do, either get rid of the filibuster and cram some of these things down the throats of aggressive, open opposition or not. But Tim Scott is going to be Tim Scott. I don't think any of us are surprised by his performance.
Cheryl, again, I have taken a lot of time to walk through this. I've gone through these particular statements. I've gone through what folks have said. I've listened to what Scott said on Face the Nation. I listened to what Booker said. I've spent the time going through it. I sat here and read the statement from the National Fraternal Order of Police as well as the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Okay? Now, I'm not in law enforcement, but frankly, if we're talking about who are the major police organizations, it's really the International Association of the Chiefs of Police and Fraternal Order of Police. But Scott is using what these sheriffs folks are saying, when if we really want to be honest, the biggest problem in this country with policing is coming from the jurisdictions covered by the FOP as well as the IACP.
So here's the deal. There's a lot of double talk and a lot of code speak, and we understand that there are 18,000 police departments across these United States, and all of them have unions of one sort or another. So to cherry pick one, South Carolina's police union, and tout what they have to say as somehow having more sway and meaning is really being disingenuous. This was never going to pass in the first place. Tim Scott made it perfectly clear in the very beginning when he said, qualified immunity is going to be a non-starter in any negotiation. That means having officers be held accountable, having officers be able to be charged when they violate policy, when they commit murder, when they use deadly force as a first resort rather than a last resort. Qualified immunity would stop all of that if it were removed out of the police officers' Bill of Rights. They do not want that. And Tim Scott knows that. Also, in this George Floyd Justice and Reform Act, I've got so many issues with it because a lot of what they talk about deals with federal funding not being given, as you said, if they don't do certain things, or if they do certain things like no-knock warrants. It only applies to federal no-knock warrants. When was the last time anybody saw a federal officer serve a doggone search warrant for narcotics? Breonna Taylor wasn't killed by federal officers. She was killed by state officers. And so all of this talk about no-knock warrants and banning chokeholds versus other departments who continue to use the chokehold, again, would only affect if it's a federal agency, not local and state police, because police chiefs have tremendous autonomy and they will continue to do exactly what it is that they have been doing, which is sheltering errant officers. All of them are being intellectually dishonest in their assertions that somehow this is about money. This is about police accountability. Be clear.
Michael, you have a piece in The Root with the headline, "In Loving Memory of Tim Scott." You say this in the piece. You said, but before his untimely death, and first of all, obviously he hasn't died, but we know what you're talking about. You said Scott also believed in police reform. He didn't just believe in it, he actually tried to do something about it. He tried before Derek Chauvin kneeled on George Floyd's neck. He tried before Louisville, Kentucky police officers lied on an affidavit to obtain a no-knock warrant for Breonna Taylor's home. Before Ahmaud Arbery, before white people pretended to care about black people for one brief summer, Tim Scott cared about black people. Unpack for the folks watching and listening how Senator Tim Scott today is totally different from the Senator Tim Scott from a few years ago.
Yeah. So I think you unpacked a lot of it, Roland, in your open. But one thing I kind of disagree with is, like, we're saying Tim Scott doesn't want police reform. It's clear, like, Tim Scott came up with the idea. If he calls this defunding the police, he came up with this idea back in 2015 when Walter Scott was shot and killed by a North Charleston police officer. And Tim Scott since then has been trying to introduce the Walter Scott Notification Act, which would create a database of police misconduct and use of lethal force, right? So Tim Scott believes in this. Tim Scott sold himself out. He knows his party doesn't believe in this. And they sent the black dude out there to take the heat because he's Tim Scott. He's the black Republican, right? But since 2015, Tim Scott has been trying to get some of these reforms. And as we talked about qualified immunity and no-knock warrants and chokehold bans, that the mechanism, this is what Tim Scott's office told me, right? This is not what I think. I talked to Tim Scott, and he got his chief of staff to walk me through the initial version of the bill. And they called the withholding of funds, this is their quote, a complicated strategy to enforce the reforms that we want, right? So if Tim Scott is complaining about this stuff, he's complaining about the stuff that Tim Scott came up with. And that's important to know, because when we talk about these police unions, we have to first of all realize that the Fraternal Order of Police oversees and represents more than half of the police officers in the country. And then we have to really know that there is this little known white supremacist movement called the Sovereign Sheriffs Movement that believes, based on this interpretation of a white supremacist manifesto from the 1600s, that the sheriffs have the ultimate authority in America. That was one of the groups that started the riots at the Capitol. That was one of the groups that they feared would rise up if Donald Trump wasn't reelected. And this sheriffs group that's why these sheriff groups are backing Tim Scott, because it's about white supremacy. It is not about policing, right? If you look back when Senator Jeff Sessions went and talked to them and told them that they are the backbone of the Anglo-Saxon law enforcement in America. This is what this is all about. So we have to know that Tim Scott is not arguing against Democrats. Tim Scott is ultimately arguing against what Tim Scott created.
I mean, Reddit, here's what Michael wrote that is just hilarious. He says, more than a year ago, Scott's own Deputy Chief of Staff, Alyssa Lee Richardson, told The Root that reducing funding to police departments was a, quote, complicated mechanism that we had to create to hold every agency accountable. In the bill, under compliance, it says ineligibility for funds for any fiscal year beginning after the date of enactment of this act, a state that fails to comply with subsection A shall be subject to a 10% reduction of the funds that will otherwise be allocated for that fiscal year to the state. What the hell is the difference between that and what Democrats have in the bill?
I don't think there is a difference or a distinction between the two. It amounts to defunding. If you don't comply with what's laid out for you to comply with, you get defunded. But, you know, to Michael's point, with Tim Scott.
No, hold on, I gotta stop you. No.
Go ahead.
You're not defunded. No, defunded means you don't get no. This is what defunded means. Defunded means my mom and daddy paying my rent. I act the ass. They say I'm stop paying your rent. That's defunded. Now, if mom and daddy say I must pull back 10% of your rent, hell, they still paying 90. So I ain't defunded. Defunded to me means we taking all your money. This is a 10% reduction. That means you're going to get 90.
It was legislation that moved in the direction of defunding. But ultimately, what you have, man, is Tim Scott needing to make a stand in the aftermath of all the tragedies we've seen in the history, the entire history of policing in this country and its roots and foundation in white supremacy. Here is an opportunity for a black man in the Senate to stand up for his people, and then we just don't see it happening. And I would go further. As much work has been put into this federal bill, and to Cheryl's point, it is just a federal bill, although the utility of that is always as a model for those states that can be pushed in the direction of reform. I would just like to see a more aggressive posture from every black elected official up there in terms of leveraging the power that they do have. You know, if the Congressional Black Caucus, for example, me and my colleagues talk about this all the time, threw out some ultimatums. They are a significant percentage of the voting body of Congress. If they collectively, as a body, said, you know what, if we don't get what the hell we want in this bill, and we don't get, you know, what we need and what we're asking for, you won't get anything else on your side. We will let the whole thing, just like that's what the Republicans do. We will burn this whole shit down if you all don't meet us halfway. And they keep pulling a weaker, less aggressive party away from the will of the majority of people in this country. We all want to see a remade criminal justice system, not just reform. I think this whole system needs to be remade. But we will get nowhere near that with people like Tim Scott and others in positions of leadership who don't have the will to exercise the power that they have. I still say, based on other situations that I've seen Tim Scott operate in, separate and apart from police issues, the brother just looks like he's got handlers to me. I don't know him as well as you do, Michael.
Here's the deal for me, Cheryl.
That's what I see.
Here's my deal, Cheryl. Okay, Senator Tim Scott, why don't you, before you talk about what Dem should do, why don't you, Senator Tim Scott, put all the law enforcement groups in a room and say, I need y'all to agree on what all y'all gonna support before we move forward. Because see, this whole deal, most support, the sheriff disagree, so therefore I ain't moving forward. No, that's called you in search of excuse, Cheryl.
Well, this is just a way to muddy up the waters and confuse people who aren't really paying attention and who aren't savvy. But like I said at the very beginning, at the end of the day, this is about police accountability. That's what this Justice and Reform Bill Act was all about. That was supposedly the purpose behind it. And we know that politicians who look like me, skin folk, are not interested and don't have the appetite, as Reddit said, to do the right thing. Even Clyburn, Majority Whip Clyburn, was talking in the very beginning about, well, this is a good bill, you know, and I think we should pass it, even though it has no teeth, even though it doesn't do anything to deter bad behavior, to stop officers from killing black folks at will. He said, well, it's a good bill. I mean, it's not perfect, so let's just go ahead and take this good bill, not having qualified immunity on the table, until we can talk about a better, more perfect bill. That will never happen because, by and large, police administrators, police unions, FOP, whatever you want to call them, do not want their officers to be held accountable. Scott said, well, we won't hold the officers accountable, but maybe we might include the agency being held accountable. If you do that, what have you taught that officer? We have in the example of Derek Chauvin, 18 personnel complaints. He hadn't learned nothing because he hadn't been held accountable. And so this is problematic for me.
And Michael, here's what I don't understand. First of all, I cannot stand weak responses. How in the hell Senator Cory Booker and the Democrats just didn't quote what you put together? They had to know that beforehand. The moment Senator Cory Booker got asked, he should have said, well, I would really like for Senator Tim Scott to please go find and discover the old Senator Tim Scott and then quote this. See, they allowed Senator Tim Scott to go on Face the Nation, say all this sort of stuff, establish and control the narrative without saying Senator Tim Scott himself previously supported cutting funds for states that did not comply.
Right. They should have, first of all, they should have, you know, when they started negotiations, they should have started with the point that we have to see how many black people the Republicans are going to let the police kill, right? That should have started the negotiations. And at every point, right, they should have said, we are taking the Republican ideas. We're taking this Tim Scott idea, right? This, because they knew, they should have known from the history of the Republican Party that the Republicans would try to twist this, whatever they tried to do, into something that was bad, something that was defunding the police. But again, I can't understand why no Democrat has come forward now and said, hey, that whole stuff that he's talking about defunding, that was his idea. He came up with that. Like, we agree with it because it's a pretty good idea if you think about it, but it came from Tim Scott. So if that is reducing funds by 10% or 20% is defunding police, then Tim Scott came up with the idea for defunding to the police. So everybody give him a hand. And that's what they should be doing. That's how they should be messaging it. But the more important part is that almost all of these things that we've discussed, right, about, you know, the legislation, all about the rules that should be given out for the grants, none of that is legislated. Like the DOJ, which is an executive level department, we could just change how those things, the money is given out. President Biden could do that. The DOJ could do that. The Attorney General could do that. And so like we're going through all these complicated mechanisms when the Democratic Party, if Joe Biden had the impetus and the will, he could do it on his own for most of these things, right? There's really qualified immunity is the only thing that he really couldn't touch. But all the rest of this stuff, we're discussing this when Joe Biden could have did that on his first day. That's what that Trump executive order has done, and Biden still hasn't rescinded that.
Folks, look, we're going to keep pressing this thing because, in matter of fact, I'm about to send Michael's piece to Senator Tim Scott right now, and I'm like, dude, I need you to explain yourself. I need you to explain how all of a sudden you're complaining about something you proposed. I can't wait to get what the answer is. I'm going to send it to his staff as well. Reddy Hudson, Cheryl Dorsey, Michael Harriet, I certainly appreciate y'all on the show having this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Roland.
See, folks, the reason why this is vital, I'm going to get our panel on, so y'all let me know when they're on as soon as possible. The reason we have to keep doing this is because I told y'all my position. My philosophy as a journalist has always been, if you do good, I'll talk about you. If you do bad, I'll talk about you. At the end of the day, I'll talk about you. It's always been my position. I've never changed, and I won't change from it. What I'm not going to do, though, is be a damn fool like the rest of these mainstream media people who allow these Republicans to come on TV and obfuscate, make up stuff, lie, spin their way out. I need to know, Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation, why didn't you have this research that Michael had? All the staffers y'all got, How is it that you didn't ask him this? Trey Gowdy, you had Tim on Fox News. We know why you didn't do it. Jake Tapper should have had it. Ask Senator Cory Booker. Chuck Todd. What the hell? You the political director of NBC News? How in the hell you didn't have this? Y'all let him come on the show and make the allegation, oh, Dems wanted to defund the police, and no, I wasn't going to support, cutting funds when you proposed it. No. No, you're not going to do this. If it was true that Democrats were doing this and you never proposed it and it bore out, okay. But Senator Tim Scott, you proposed doing what you now criticize. Own up to it. Admit it. It's in the language. But that's what happens when folks play games, because you know what? They don't expect you to know, but y'all damn sure expect those of us in the media to do the damn research, to check the backstory. And unfortunately, there are too many folks in media, mainstream media, who only care about inviting the same voices back again and again and again, as opposed to challenging them with truth and integrity. Risha Cova, Black Women's Views, joins us right now. Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University. Greg, I'll start with you.
Oh, I was waiting. I thought you were going first, brother. Like, I'm still.
No. I'm just bringing you to the floor.
Oh no, brother! I've been watching the whole conversation. We both been watching the whole conversation, and so I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding at the center of this. Both Brother Dorsey and my friend Mike Harriet brought it up. In my mind, this has nothing to do with police reform or police anything, really. This is about control. Now, the only thing that has changed since Senator Scott introduced that bill, the Walter Scott Notification Act, that he folded in as his opening bid in the Justice Act, as Mike wrote about, the only thing that has changed is the white nationalist party is no longer in control of the federal government. This is all about the Republican Party. There's a fundamental misunderstanding about where we live. I'm encouraged by all of this because we are closer now to that period you're always talking about, Reconstruction period of the 19th century, than we've been at any time since Reconstruction, including the 1960s. Why do I say that? The white nationalists in this country, and they've been primarily clustered in the South, although not exclusively, this is the attitude of white nationalism toward the federal government. They will either control the federal government or they will force the federal government to acquiesce in what they are doing. This is the basis of federalism, which is why Scott brought it up. The basis of federalism for white nationalism is you either let us do what we want to do, or we use the federal mechanism to do what we want to do. So when Tim Scott says that this activity would defund the police, he's not wrong in the sense it would diminish federal resources to the police. But what he proposed when the white nationalists were in charge of the federal government would rely on the white nationalists in charge of the federal government, allowing the state and local authorities to get their money anyway. But now that the white nationalists are not in control of the federal government, he's worried that the federal government might actually execute what he proposed when there was less of a chance of them doing that. Now, it may sound crazy, but please, we have to understand the context for this. There is not a moment, and I would invite anyone who can show me something different. In fact, we were just talking with my law students last night. There's not a moment in the history of this country when white nationalism hasn't been either in control of the federal government or allowed to do what they want by the federal government. The 3 Fugitive Slave Acts, 1787 Northwest Ordinance, 1820 Compromise of 1820, 1850 the Fugitive Slave Act. The federal government gave cover to the damn white nationalists in the South. And that led to Dred Scott in 1857, where the Supreme Court basically federalized blackness and said there's no place you are safe. By the way, these bills against abortion in Texas and other places in Mississippi, their move is to get the federal government to acquiesce. So if you think you can go over the border from Texas to Louisiana to get an abortion now, when the Supreme Court outlaws it, they're going to do for abortion what they did for slavery with Dred Scott. 1865 to 1877 was the small window when there was a chance to change this project, because what did Dred Scott lead to? The damn Civil War. And that's where we're headed. After that was over, the North made up with the South and allowed them to do what they want to do. I'm saying what Tim Scott is doing right now is being the front man for white nationalism that is saying we are going to either control this government or we're going to make y'all do what you want us to do.
Racy?
Well, I think that Republicans have the advantage here because Republicans are completely untethered by the truth, by reality, by any kind of conviction, moral core. And that's what Tim Scott has demonstrated unequivocally. And it's also clear that you can't negotiate with terrorists. In order for the Democrats to get anything done, they're going to have to go at it alone. This notion that there's going to be bipartisan support for something as contentious as police reform is absurd. And now with the shift that we've seen from what people have called the racial reckoning last year to now where crime is up throughout the country, there's even less of an appetite for Republicans to even pay lip service to any kind of police reform. And that's why, as Congresswoman Karen Bass pointed out last week, the Republicans are not even signing up to Trump's executive order to codifying that into law. And so I think, when it comes to this Justice and Policing Reform Act, I think that it just shows how big of a hill or how steep of a challenge Democrats are going to have in 2022 and explaining why they didn't get this done, because nobody cares. Voters do not care about Senate procedure. They don't care about this person flip-flopping on their views, particularly the person that's in the opposite party. They only care about what you get done. And so, perhaps there are some things that can be done through executive order, but this is going to just end up being another L in the Democrats' column unless they figure out to do something about this filibuster. The one other thing that I will say is I just want to address something that was said about the CBC and, them wielding their power. I think it should be clear that, the CBC is a very powerful voting bloc in the House of Representatives. There are only 2 people in the CBC on the Senate side. And so I think that it's a little misleading to try to suggest that they can just blow this whole thing up when all these things are passing in the House. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is passed in the House. There are a number of very major legislations that's passed in the House. So I think that this shouldn't revert to some sort of, this is on Black people. No, this is on the entire Democratic Party to figure out a way to deal with Manchin and Sinema and anybody else that's hiding behind them in regards to filibuster reform.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A Black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig? Folks, we've been talking all week about the failure of Republicans and Democrats to come to a resolution and agreement on the George Floyd Justice Act. We've been breaking down for you the weird discrepancies and the frankly hypocritical positions of South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Now, yesterday we talked on the show about how Senator Tim Scott previously agreed with withholding funds from police departments that did not make changes based upon federal law, which is a total opposite of what he said on Sunday on Face the Nation when he was criticizing Democrats for the exact same thing. Now, last night, I sent a text message to Senator Tim Scott asking him specifically about the contradiction. He's yet to respond. I sent an email to his staff, who yesterday sent me several emails regarding his position, specifically asking them about his prior position and his own deputy chief of staff telling Michael Harriot of the Root why they were doing it. I've gotten no response from his Senate staff. How does the George Floyd family feel? Thelonious Floyd is his brother. He joins us live right now from my home city, Houston, Texas. Thelonious, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Just share with us your feeling right now with the fact that when y'all were in D.C. in May for the 1-year anniversary of the death of your brother, y'all came and sat with me on Black Lives Matter Plaza in D.C. Yes, the only interview y'all did that day. After you came from Capitol Hill, after you met with Senator Tim Scott, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Lindsey Graham, and others, well, they promised you they were going to get this done. Just share with our audience your reaction to hearing Senator Tim Scott say the Democrats want to defund the police, and that's why we can't move forward.
Every time I spoke with them, I never said anything about defunding the police. You need police because you have bad people. The problem is with police, you shouldn't have to sort them out. Everybody should be equal and be good and do their job the right way. The problems that we are having, we're not having them because of them defunding the police. The police are free to roam and do what they want to do, but they're killing innocent black African-American people who I love, people of color, period. My brother passed, but he didn't. He died because he was murdered. The man stayed on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Hell, I was a truck driver, Mr. Rowland. The day my brother died, I could have hit rock bottom, but I didn't. I chose to get up and help these families because I was in the fight. Because when you lose someone that you love so much, it can change your entire life. And that's the reason I get up every day and I tell myself, I'm going to speak. But speaking to Timothy Eugene Scott, speaking to Lindsey Graham multiple times, and I have sat there and watched these people lie to me in my face. Not just me. You had other families in there. You had Botham Jean. You had Terrence Crutcher. You had Eric Garner. These are moms and sisters. I'm a brother. But the fact that you had moms in there and you lied to somebody's mom who lost their child, that's very painful. And Gianna was in there too. They lied to Gianna. She's a child. You shouldn't lie to kids. You don't have to. She didn't ask for her dad to be murdered. He was murdered by the police, and as that is your job to make sure you put laws in place intact to help other individuals be able to live and be free and have freedom. We don't have freedom. I don't care what people say. My brother, he walked to the store. That was a problem. He was murdered. You got Ahmaud Arbery. He ran down the street jogging. He was lynched. You have Botham Jean. He was in the comfort of his own home eating ice cream and was murdered by a police officer because she came into the wrong house. Not only that, you have Breonna Taylor. She was murdered off a no-knock warrant, and she was killed, and she still don't even know she did because she was asleep. This is not a mistake. These are patterns,
And Timothy Eugene Scott, you need to wake up. Lindsey Graham, you the one that said you was going to get this bill passed. You told us that. And we all sat there and believed, because we can't make you do anything. All we know is you all can make laws for the elite and the chosen, but we want you to make laws for the people with no voices. And I'm one of the people that's going to stand up for these people. And I know, Mr. Rowland, you've been doing it for a long time, and I've been watching a lot of your shows. But the fact that I agree that we will have to fight, and we'll have to do it all over. The fact that my ancestors, they have passed away countless times, all for over 400 years, and all they wanted to do was just be free and live their life the way they should have been able to live countless times. I look up every day and I think about them being bitten, trying to vote, trying to think that, okay, if I vote, I can put the right president in and I can get things accomplished. You know, we believed in Biden's administration. And when I can tell you, all we asking for the same thing we've been asking for over 400 years. We just want to be treated fairly. That's all we want. And for me to sit there...
You mentioned believing in the Biden administration. You mentioned believing in the Biden administration. What do you want President Biden to do right now?
I want him to call down to Eugene Scott and Lindsey Graham, everybody, because Sheila Jackson Lee, the Energizer Bunny, she's been running herself rapidly and crazy in circles trying to get things accomplished. You have Karen Bass, you have Pelosi, all of these people, they're looking because they know what's going on. The problem is with Eugene Scott and with Lindsey Graham and probably more Republicans, because we don't want to defund the police. We want the police to respect us as human beings. We just want to be treated fairly. The things with Biden, you know, I know he's looking at everything right now, but hey, we need your help. We need the vice president's help. We need anybody who can make an executive decision right now to pass this George Floyd Policing Act, because people are dying at a rate. I was in Minnesota, and I'm there for my brother at a case in court, and all of a sudden, Dante Wright has been murdered. And I went out and spoke about him. The problem is, it happened in Minnesota again, 5 minutes away from where I was speaking and trying to get my brother's life on track because he was murdered. You know, we don't want a watered down bill. We want the George Floyd Policing Act passed, just like it is. We want to end qualified immunity. We want to end a lot of different things. The no-knock warrants, we don't need to have that. The no chokeholds, we don't need that. We need you all to have the police officers to have you all's dash cams on at all time, your body cams on at all time, because it's a problem if you don't. Because it takes 20 to 30 seconds for it to come back on, and if you have something to hide, that's what I'm looking to find out. What are you doing behind closed doors? What kind of skeletons do you have? That's what I need to know, Mr. Rowland.
Questions for Raji Muhammad first for Felonious Floyd.
Brother Felonious, thank you so much for joining us. First and foremost, my heart and prayers continue to go out to you and your family in this time. You know, as I'm listening to you, brother, I'm just so disturbed, and it's really unfortunate that you have to come on here and you have to be an advocate, that you gotta continue to you know, push people to do the simple right thing, and it's sad. And you know, I guess I don't have any questions, just because my heart is just broken, because I'm hearing you, and I'm reading some of our watchers on Facebook. One of our watchers said you should run for public office, because at this point it's hard to have a belief in anything in the government, just because there has been so many lies that have been told to our people about ensuring some level of justice. So I'm just wondering, dear brother, you know, what can the people do, the community, black folks that are listening, and black folks across the country? Your brother's death galvanized a movement like we haven't seen, And I don't think it was just about him. It started with him, but it was really about the larger issue. So what can we do to help you, dear brother? How can we be of a service and assistance? I'm not even sure if we can get the bill back on the agenda at this point, but what do we need to do on the state level, city level to help you and your family, most importantly, helping the families of so many other folks that you have come across that have been victimized by police officers?
First thing first, we can never give up hope. We always got to be able to work together because we're stronger in numbers. I say that all the time. The fact that
sir.
we are, sir?
No, I was just agreeing with you, dear brother. I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The fact that people got out and marched during COVID, when it was a pandemic, people were losing their lives, going home to tables with empty chairs, and they still got out and marched. They didn't fear COVID. What they feared were police officers out there murdering people. And it wasn't just African-American people out there marching. You had Caucasian people out there marching, people who went to school with African-American people, people who played with us, people who grew up with us. You are not taught to be racist. You become racist because of who in your family. Because outside of that, people don't teach you that. People just tell you to go out and have fun. So I want everybody that's with us, just period. This is a movement, and we need to stick to it because right now they're sweeping it under the rug, and whatever we have to do to get out there and be team players. And when I say team players, get out there and get to marching and protesting. We got to do it peacefully because right now, if you do anything wrong, they'll find a reason to kill you. And I want you always to remember this. If they can make federal laws to protect a bird, which is the bald eagle, they can make federal laws to protect people of color. And the thing that I never understood was how if you can see a black person killed, nobody says anything. But you see a white person killed, and there's an outrage. It's time for a change, and it's up to us as brothers and sisters. Dr. King said a long time ago, he had a dream that people all around the world would join hands together, and we close to doing that because the world has got behind George Floyd. The world has got behind this movement, and they're pushing behind Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Pamela Turner. I can keep naming them. It's so many of them. Anthony McClain. And this is a sad situation that we have to fight for what we're fighting for. And we have to feel like we're second-class citizens because they're making laws for Asians and everybody else except people of color.
Michael.
Hey, Brother Phalonis, thanks for coming on today and sharing this information with us. And
yes, sir.
I'm just, my heart goes out to you and your family, and you will keep persevering as well. Yes, so I see that also. Yesterday, the New York Times had a huge story that talked about more than half of police killings are mislabeled. And they looked at a 40-year, they're looking at a 40-year period of time from 1980 to 2018. And about 55% of fatal encounters with police officers have been mislabeled. They have not properly been counted. So we're looking at about an undercount of about 17,000 people who have been killed by police from 1980 to 2018. With information like this just came out yesterday. With information like this, one, do you think this will help be able to push through the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? Because one of the things that it will do is require accurate reporting when it comes to police fatalities. And two, there's some talk about a carve out to the filibuster rule to be able to get this pushed through the Senate by 51 votes, 50 Democrats and Vice President Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker. What are your thoughts on this and trying to get this pushed through through a carve out to the filibuster? Because we're not going to get any help from Republicans on this. They've just been stalling.
But my thoughts is we got to build We gotta build, and we have to continue, just like you said, what you read in the Times. We have to continue to gather that information and just apply it to people who need to hear it constantly. Because the problem is not us. It's clearly everybody else. Because we're not the one killing people. We are the ones being murdered. So for us to have the problems that we're having now, I pretty much think that we need to, not only us, anybody else who wants to relay the message, just like what you just said, we can. I'll even like speak to them when I have the opportunity to, because right now, evidently you can see what's going on. Nobody wants to speak to me now because I'm in an outrage. And the fact that, I understand, but the problem that I'm going with now, it's not about like how much. The problem is basically it's like change doesn't come without cost, and it's basically how much are you willing to lose to win the fight? That's it. We're not going to war, but we're not laying down either. So I stand with you, brother. And all the information that you're telling me, I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna make sure they understand that these are facts. This is not fiction. Facts. Right. You can't take away facts, just like you couldn't take away that video of our brother.
Thank you.
Felonious, last question for you. I said earlier this week that I believe that the George Floyd family, the Breonna Taylor family, others' family, they should announce that they are coming to Washington, D.C., that they are demanding that Senator Tim Scott, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Dick Durbin sit at the table to meet with them and look them in the eye and say, why have y'all failed? Is that something that y'all are considering, literally making that demand and say, we are going to come to Capitol Hill and we want that meeting and see who shows up?
I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it because it's not just my brother's life that has been taken away. You have millions and billions of people living in this world where they are killing innocent people. I'm talking about police brutality on innocent people. I will go. Just give me the time and the place. I will be there because somebody has to speak out. Somebody has to let them know that, hey, I'm still here. You're not finna just grab pliers and twist my teeth and make it hard for me to live. No, I'm here. I'm here to stay. I want to be able to make sure my kids be able to live in this world without telling them, hey, make sure when the police pull you over, make sure you have all the windows down, for they won't be able to say, hey, I thought somebody was in the back seat, that's why I started shooting. No, I don't hate police. I think police are good people. But the fact that I have to get up out of my bed every day and tell people what reality is, this here is a big mess. And we're not sleeping. We're wide awake. We can get to Capitol Hill, Mr. Rowland. We can do that. I'll be with them if they want to. I'm here for them.
Y'all let me know when you do that, and we'll be there to live stream y'all walking up the steps on Capitol Hill to that meeting. And so I think they have to be challenged directly. And yes, President Biden has to be challenged directly to actually do more as well. Because frankly, the White House has been silent this week on the collapse of these talks, and it's time for them to step the hell up. Felonious Floyd, I always appreciate having you on the show, brother. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.